Chapter 1470. Although the Fox Emperor and the Cat Ancestor were anxious, they managed to keep their composure and only sent someone to invite Yun Yang and his family to the banquet at night. It's almost time. Yun Yang's gaze flickered. What's the situation now? Yun Yang sat down and asked. The Fox Emperor kept a straight face and did not speak. The Cat Ancestor said in a muffled voice, "The strategy of annihilation." The strategy of annihilation? Annihilation of the world? Yes, the strategy of annihilation. The Cat Ancestor heaved a long sigh. 10 billion lives as a sacrifice, for emperors as a guide, the world will be turned upside down, and this filthy world will be destroyed. This is the strategy of annihilation. With the lives and souls of 20 billion martial artists as a guide, the blood of the 4 emperors will soar into the sky, causing the stars to fall and the heavens to rage. The earth will split and the sky will be turned upside down, the pillars of the world will collapse. Finally, the strategy of overturning the sea will be used to overturn the continent. Wherever it goes, the world will be in turmoil. This is the content of the strategy of annihilation. The Fox Emperor finished his goblet of wine in one gulp and said, "The 4 emperors in the strategy will definitely include the 2 of us. As for the Fox warriors captured before this, they will all be counted within the 10 billion. 10 billion lives as a sacrifice isn't just 10 billion, it's 20 billion or even more. The more people sacrificed, the better the effect. 20 billion is just the lowest limit." The Fox Emperor's expression was grim. "We, the demon race, call this the strategy of annihilation. You humans seem to have something similar, the blood sacrificed to heaven." This time, it was Yun Yang's turn to be pale. The bound of universe naturally had the saying of the blood sacrificed to heaven. Hundreds of millions of martial artists were bound together, and with a swing of a saber, the air of blood and souls of the dead soared into the sky, triggering the wrath of heaven and earth, turning the world upside down. It was just that this saying had always been treated as a cynical poem written by a bored scholar. No one had ever taken it seriously. Now, not only did this saying, which had been deemed as a rumor, contain the truth, but it also had far-reaching implications, pointing directly at the bound of universe. Although Yun Yang had a considerable understanding of the current situation, it was still beyond his expectations. For a moment, Yun Yang felt that the wine was difficult to swallow even when it entered his throat. He put down the goblet and said in a low voice, "I wonder what my 2 elder brothers have decided. Now that the war is perilous, it's not only my 2 elder brothers who don't have more time. This young brother has to respond as soon as possible and fight against this apocalyptic catastrophe." The Fox Emperor narrowed his eyes and said, "You've finally said it? Is it because he knows the seriousness of this matter and decided not to play any more tricks?" Yun Yang chuckled dryly and said, "Things can be smoothed over slowly. If both elder brothers had thought it through and spoken up yourselves, we wouldn't have harmed our relationship and created a rift. However, now that the situation is pressing, this young brother will ask on his own. Even if both elder brothers are displeased and come looking for trouble with this young brother in the future, this young brother wouldn't dare have the slightest complaint." Fox Sovereign laughed heartily. Cat Ancestor could not help but laugh as well. "Not daring to have the slightest complaint? We'll remember this. If you don't acknowledge you're dead in the future, don't blame us brothers for joining forces to deal with you." Ji Lingxi and Shengguan Lingxiu looked at each other, reading the thoughts in each other's eyes. They had always known that this husband of theirs was formidable and that his schemes were elusive. Now that he had given the other party the cold shoulder for an entire day and night, he had taken the initiative to ask about it, taking advantage of the fact that he was insignificant. Thus, the 2 demon sovereigns did not harbor any grudges. At least, they felt better about it. The Fox Emperor chuckled for a while before his expression turned grim again. "This time, both our races really have nowhere else to go. Death is at our doorstep, and there's nowhere to hide. So, let's work together. Yun-yang sucked in a deep breath. No one knew better than him how difficult it was to utter the word, work together, from the Fox Emperor's mouth. This sage of the demon race had finally been forced to the end of his rope today. If he were in the Fox Emperor's shoes, Yun-yang was not sure if he had the courage or the determination to say such a thing. Most of the time, it was not difficult to die, but to give up one's original intentions, one's stance, and one's principles for something required a great deal of courage. The collaboration is only limited to the realm of demons. The Fox Emperor's gaze was complicated as he said, if we're talking about attacking the Crimson Soul Mountain, it's still impossible for us to help the human race defend against the demon race. When that time comes, the most we can do is watch from the sidelines and not help either side. There might even be a possibility that we can't bear to watch and join the war. I know this isn't logical, but this is our bottom line, the bottom line of being demons. Although it's a little shameless and boastful for us to say this now. Big Brother's words speak volumes of sincerity. Yun-yang nodded. Then let's do as you say. A promise is worth its weight in gold. The Fox Emperor was silent for a long time before he said, "Oh, third, I need you to be honest. What is your attitude towards the demon race? Or should I say, what do you hope for the final outcome to be?" Yun-yang pondered, not in a hurry to answer. At this moment, he inexplicably thought of a saying, "Don't go too far." If he had a choice, Yun-yang did not want to go too far. After all, whether it was the Fox Emperor or the three rulers, they had all mentioned to Yun-yang that the bound of universe could only exist if the human and demon races were to oppose each other and restrain each other. If only one race were to dominate, perhaps the bound of universe would descend into a dead end due to the extreme depletion of resources many years later. However, the situation now was different. The demon race's strategy had already gone too far. Even if Yun-yang wanted to hold back, could he really do so? What if those reservations led to irreversible consequences? Yun-yang had to think carefully about the severity of this matter, considering it again and again. After a long time, Yun-yang said slowly, if, and I'm saying if the human race can win. I've never planned to completely annihilate the demon race. Even today, after weighing the pros and cons, I've still decided not to do so. It's enough to weaken the demon race. Completely annihilating the demon race will only cause the human race to lose its balance and become the sole power in the bound of universe, or even the cause of its collapse. The Fox Emperor's eyes shone. However, there's something that needs to be said seriously. The demon race's ability and decisiveness are far beyond my initial expectations. The so-called weakening refers to reducing the demon race's ability to a certain extent. Yun-yang gritted his teeth and said, not only are the demon race's Saint Pinnacle experts numerous in number, their combat power is also formidable. The human race must have the relative upper hand in the future. So, if we can win, I expect the demon race's saint to be controlled to 5. No matter what, it can't be more than 10. This is already the limit. If we lose, then there's no need to say anything. The cat ancestor suddenly said, this number, does it include the forces of the sea race? Yun-yang nodded heavily. Of course it includes the sea race. Besides, the sea race is my main target this time. Yun-yang had always neglected the sea race's forces. Although Yun-yang had always known and even personally experienced the sea race's power, he had instinctively thought that the sea race was difficult to build a path between land and sea, that both sides could not invade each other and coexist peacefully. This time, however, he was shocked to realize that the sea race's power was so immense that it was actually vaguely on par with the human race and the land's demon race. Billions of lives had been sacrificed just like that, and a large tribe of the demon race had been annihilated just like that. What kind of power was this? What kind of power was this? Furthermore, the main executor of this apocalypse strategy was the sea race. Once the sea race was allowed to grow stronger, the disaster they would cause would not be lesser than the land demon race. Instead, it would be even more tragic. If they were allowed to continue to grow, the bound of universe might become the bound of universe, the ultimate outcome where the sea race dominated. This is very difficult to achieve. The Fox Emperor sighed. Saints are immortal and indestructible. Rebirth from a single drop of blood is a common occurrence. If there's a corresponding restraining method, it's not an easy task even for a pinnacle saint to kill a beginner saint. Even though there's a huge gap in their abilities, everyone can use the laws of heaven and earth and have their own unique survival and escape skills. The moment one attains the level of a saint, he has already become one with this world's heaven's will. It's easier said than done to perish. Unless a saint takes the initiative to fight to the death, only then can it be annihilated. The cat ancestor added, as long as they still have the will to live and have the intention to retreat, they can flee at any time. It'll be difficult to find them. Yunyang frowned and hummed in agreement. As for the fact that sages were immortal and difficult to kill, there were too many examples in the battle that day. Dozens of beginner-level sages of the demon clan were no match for him at all. A casual slash from him could shatter their bodies and destroy their souls. However, the real result of the battle was that no matter how hard he fought, he would not really die. Even if his bones were shattered and turned into powder, he could still reassemble in the next moment and rejoin the battle. This was because of the special circumstances that day. The beginner saints of the demon race knew that they were no match for the saints, but they persevered despite the repeated blows. What if they did not reassemble themselves and rejoin the battle? At least, Yunyang did not have the confidence to confirm their condition. Was they dead or alive? Perhaps, they were hiding somewhere? Yunyang felt the power in his body carefully. It was as vast as the starry sky. Within his meridians, there was a clear galaxy, dazzling and beautiful. This was the embodiment of breaking through the level of saint and reaching the level of half a step into the starry sky. With one more step, he would be a higher level of the starry sky. The effect of the radiance of sun and moon fruit was indeed heaven-defying. It had just been consumed and there was already such a miraculous effect. It lived up to its reputation. However, even though I'm already half a step into the starry sky, I feel that there's still an unreachable distance between me and my sworn big brother. It's still hard for me to be confident about the current situation, Yunyang pondered. If I were to target a beginner saint with this cultivation base, I might be able to kill him, but what about those of a higher level? Can I kill them too? The sound of crashing waves came from outside. It was obvious that the sea race was stirring up the tsunami again. I have to rush back now and inform Dongfang and the rest of the situation here so that we can formulate a targeted strategy. Yunyang decided immediately. Big brother, second brother, hold on for a while. I'll be back in 2 hours at most. 2 hours? The two sovereigns were shocked. Yes, only 2 hours. Yunyang separated his hands and tore the space apart. With a sway of his body, all signs of life disappeared without a trace. The younger generation will surpass us in time indeed. Cat ancestor sighed, a little disappointed. When he tore the space apart just now, I could vaguely see the image of the Crimson Soul Mountain. The 2 hours he said should be the entire time spent going back and forth. Most of the time was spent talking and making decisions. Compared to OL third, I feel like I've lived for tens of thousands of years. Shut up. Fox Emperor said sternly. You've lived to, that thing. Our cultivation bases are about the same, but what about me? I'm not younger than you. I'm already so old, but I can't even speak. I've really lived to, that thing. Just like Cat Emperor's judgment, Yunyang, whose cultivation base had improved again, returned to the bound of universe very quickly. He met with the 3 sovereigns, including Dongfang Haoran, and the news he brought back shocked Dongfang Haoran and the rest to the core. It was unbelievable. World annihilation strategy. It's actually the world annihilation strategy. Dongfang Haoran's face was blank from shock. This was not a situation that should have happened to this human magnate. The only thing we can do now is to take the initiative and attack. Shimen Fanfu said anxiously, before the demon race's accumulated water reaches its peak, move all the mountains and guide them away. As the saying goes, it's better to open up than block it. As long as we clear it properly, even if the flood is inevitable and we don't know if it will lead to a catastrophe, we can buy as much buffer time as possible. We can't do it. It's too late. It's useless. Beigong Liuli sighed deeply and spat out these words. First of all, we can't do it. Since the demon race has used such an extreme tactic like the world annihilation strategy, their defense must be tight to counter our possible reaction. We can only use elite troops because we're passively attacking. But our experts, be it in terms of quantity or quality, are far less than the demon races. How can we accomplish anything? If it's purely to defend the Blood Soul Mountain, with our current manpower, especially the full support of the 9 Supremes, we can hold our ground. After all, the Blood Soul Mountain is narrow, and there are not many demon race experts who are capable enough to come up and fight. However, if it's to take the initiative to move the mountains and guide the water in the vast demon realm, it's impossible. Once we're entangled, we'll be in danger of dying. It's too late to talk about it. According to Yun Yang, the demon race has already begun to target the Fox clan. So far, the Fox clan is almost completely annihilated, which means that the demon race has finished preparing for the world annihilation strategy. It's useless to disrupt it now. It's too late. As for the last useless, I believe that the cooperation with the Sea clan is only a stopgap measure for the demon race. With the help of the Sea clan, the chance of victory will increase greatly, but even without it, the demon race can probably make up these sacrifices themselves, and still carry out the world annihilation strategy. After all, the core of this world annihilation strategy is the lives of billions of demon race and the lives of 4 emperors. The ultimate goal is to shake the world's pillar, not to destroy the world with just the sea. The waves and the flood are only the follow-up measures for the demon race to take over the bound of universe. They're definitely not the means to break through the Blood Soul Mountain. Yun Yang suddenly thought of something and interrupted. It's very likely that the Phoenix Emperor has thought deeper. He pulled the Sea clan into the game and made them sacrifice billions of lives to add to their numbers. On one hand, it's to damage the overall strength of the Sea clan, on the other hand, it's also to prevent the Sea clan from watching from the sidelines and reap the benefits of the ultimate war between the human and the demon race. At the same time, it reduces the loss of billions of lives that should have been paid by the demon race. It's killing 3 birds with 1 stone. It's a good plan, a good move. Beigong Liuli's face was gloomy. Now, admiring the enemy's strategy has nothing to do with the grand plan. Actively dealing with it is the top priority, but taking the initiative to attack is destined to be useless. Shimen Fanfu said angrily, "Don't go if it's useless. Can't I see the difference in this? But even if we know that it's useless, we still have to do it. Now, we must try to buffer the situation as much as possible. Only by going can we fight for a buffer." Beigong Liuli said coldly, "Sacrifice at all costs. Even if we fight for a buffer, so what? How many high-end forces do we have? Have you calculated the possible losses?" Shimen Fanfu said angrily, we'll go all out. We can send 19 saints. Demigods can also join the battle." Beigong Liuli chuckled coldly. "Not enough combat power, so you'll use heads to make up for it? What's the point of sending demigods? To send heads to the demon race? Non-saint level combat power, going to the demon race is suicide." There are more than 40 powerful tribes in the demon race. Each tribe has at least one saint in charge. The rest don't matter, but the tribe's ruler has to be a ruler no matter what. There's nothing wrong with this, is there? Shimen Fanfu snorted. The demon race respects strength, far more than we humans do. The stronger the tribe's overall strength, the more right they have to speak. This has also led to many demon race tribes having more than 1, 2, or even more saint-level experts. A few powerful tribes, such as the dragon race, phoenix race, eagle race, rock race, tiger race, and leopard race, have many saint-level experts. Do you know what this means? Even with the most conservative rough estimate, the demon race has at least 100 saint-level experts. And this number doesn't include the sea race. The strength of the sea race is a mystery. Do you know how strong they are? Beigong Liuli snorted and said, based on my judgment, the sea race will not have a small number of saint-level experts. Even if they can't compare to the demon race on land, no matter how few they have several times more people than us. After all, the sea race covers a larger area, and the ocean is deeper. In fact, it's not impossible for the sea race to have more experts than the demon race. Further analysis, if we take the initiative to attack, we will definitely have to face the top experts of the demon race. Which one of the Dragon Emperor and Phoenix Emperor is our match? Even the Rock Emperor has combat power that is on par with us. Even if we gather all 19 sages and bring a group of half-sages to fight to the death with the demon race and risk our lives against 200 sages led by 2 invincible experts, the final result is self-evident. We will definitely suffer a crushing defeat, and our efforts will be in vain. Beigong Liuli spat on Shimen Fanfu's face. Is your brain fried? Shimen Fanfu's face darkened. He gritted his teeth and did not speak. If this was before, Shimen Fanfu would have fought with Beigong Liuli just because of this sentence. But now, he did not have the mood to do so. Because Beigong Liuli was right. Even if they went in full force, it would only be an intense battle that was destined to be unwinnable. The so-called destruction, with so many high-level experts of the demon race and sea race, how could they just sit back and watch? The demon race would never hope that the human race would be kept in the dark and completely unaware of the demon race's strategic movements. There were simply too many ways to deal with them. The demon race, who had the comprehensive battle strength and the absolute advantage in terms of manpower, could lead the battle to the skies or to the sea. In any case, it was impossible for it to be near those mountains that could be easily destroyed. There was no doubt that the Phoenix Empress would definitely consider this matter. Fortunately, there were only 5 people plotting here. The other human experts were not here. Otherwise, hearing this would probably only affect the morale of the demon race. Then what should we do? Shimen Fanfu had a worried expression and said, could it be that the only thing we can do is wait for death? We know too late. The demon race has already formed and the power of the world extinguishing stratagem has already formed. With enough preparation, as long as we have enough strength to complete it, it will not be stopped or destroyed. Dongfang Haoran said quietly, if it could be easily stopped and destroyed, how could it be called the world extinguishing stratagem? The Yao Emperor and the Phoenix Emperor working together is an absolute suppression in the entire demon race. The other experts of the demon race cannot stop what they decide. There is also the Sea Emperor. He is also in control of the sea and cannot be stopped. The 3 strongest emperors working together to carry out the world-extinguishing stratagem, how can we stop them? Even if we know what the others' movements are, what their goal is, and when they will move, we still cannot stop them. Dongfang Haoran seemed to have aged 1,000 years in an instant. Even his eyes dimmed. If we go to the demon race and start a decisive battle, I'm afraid the demon race can even save on the world-extinguishing stratagem. Over there, in the main battlefield of the demon race, it is enough to kill all of our higher-ups. Without the saint experts guarding the Blood Soul Mountain, how can we stop the demon race's attack? What's left is to be pushed in. The entire bound of universe will become the territory of the demon race. The only thing we can do now is to rely on the natural defenses of the Blood-Soul Mountain and defend it to the death, not letting the demon race shake the Blood-Soul Mountain. Then we can pray that the power of the world-extinguishing stratagem will not cause the Blood-Soul Mountain to fall. Only then can we preserve the survival of bound of universe and let the demon race fall. This is no longer a conspiracy because the demon race is not afraid of us knowing. It has turned from a conspiracy into an open conspiracy. If the Blood-Soul Mountain is destroyed, we will fight to the death on the Blood-Soul Mountain. If the Blood-Soul Mountain is luckily not destroyed, then after the world-extinguishing stratagem, the demon race will not be able to cause trouble for at least 100,000 years. Dongfang Haoran said dejectedly, so, it is no different from before. We can only hope that the Blood-Soul Mountain left behind by Lord Monarch can resist the destructive power of the world-extinguishing stratagem. Python 9 smiled faintly, stood up and said, "This old man will go back for a while." "For what?" Python 9 smiled and said, "Xian beasts and demon race, in terms of appearance, there is almost no difference between the two. The so-called difference is, one cultivates Xian qi, the other cultivates demon qi. One has a Xian core, the other a demon core. Demon beasts eat humans, Xian beasts don't. MN, the last point is only a difference in behavior, it has nothing to do with the grand scheme. It is the same transformation, and it is also the same learning everything about humans. But now, the demonic beasts have actually caused such a huge commotion. This makes this old man feel that we Xian beasts have been outdone. We've been completely outdone. This makes this old man feel very uncomfortable. A layer of arrogance appeared on Python 9's thin face. He said, "Since the demon beasts have caused such a huge commotion, and it concerns the welfare of the entire Xianhuang world, it would be inexcusable if we Xian beasts do nothing. This old man has decided that this calamity will be resolved by the Xian beasts." Python 9, are you saying that you want to use the Xian beasts to destroy the demon race's world-extinguishing stratagem? Are you joking? Python 9 said in a low voice, "Back then, the old ancestor solemnly said that if the human race is in danger, the Xian beasts can come out of Tianfa. Xian beasts coming out of Tianfa. Xian beasts coming out of Tianfa." Back then, the old ancestor had created an extreme strategy to deal with the situation where the Xian beasts were weaker. Using 99 Xian beasts as a team, or 999 or 9,999 as a team. If there is enough of them, they can also form a team of 99,999. Using the most extreme method of self-destruction, they can drag the enemy along with them. No matter how strong the enemy is, they can be killed. Perhaps their individual combat power may not be comparable to the demonic beasts. But Python 9 laughed coldly. But if we are to compare numbers, our Tianfa Holy Land will not be weaker than any other race in this world. Yunyang, Dongfang Haoran, and the rest were all moved when they heard this, their eyes shining brightly. Python 9 did not wait for another word and hurriedly left, tearing apart the space and disappearing without a trace in an instant. Shiman Fanfu looked at the direction Python 9 left in a daze. After a while, he sighed and said, "With Python 9's departure, the Xian beasts will really come out of Tianfa. Perhaps they can be of some use, but I'm afraid that after this battle, this Tianfa Holy Land will be completely destroyed. Sigh, in the Xianhuang world's time of crisis, as the people directly involved, how can we fall behind the Xian beasts? I'll go back and gather the manpower now. Cultivators above the Saint King level, join the battle and participate in this battle of life and death." Shiman Fanfu also left in a hurry. Dongfang Haoran and Beigong Liuli also made the same decision. On the contrary, Yun Yang's attitude was a little confused. He was the one who had brought back this explosive piece of news, and in his heart, he had wanted to provoke the 4 beast sovereigns, including Python 9. He wanted to use this to help the Fox Emperor and Cat Emperor gain a certain amount of authority, so that the 2 races wouldn't be reduced to vassals of the human race. However, he never thought that the current situation was that bad. But seeing the 4 rulers' worried expressions, he could not help muttering to himself, could it be that it has really come to this? No, I have to go back and take a look. Since the news had been brought back and the continent had already begun to deploy troops, Yun Yang's mission was considered completed. Patting his backside, he returned to the demon race's side. Time. The most important thing now was time. The continent needed time to deploy the manpower. Previously, because of the addition of the 9 Supremes, a newly ascended Celestial Palace-level superpower, to the Blood Soul Mountain, the human race's morale was at an all-time high. They were almost subconsciously certain that the current combat power was not only enough to protect the Blood Soul Mountain, but also to attack the demon race by force. But now it seemed that it was far from enough. It was simply wishful thinking. Once the Blood Soul Mountain collapsed, with the strength that the human race had gathered now, they would still not be able to stop the demon race's invasion even if they fought to the death. Yun Yang returned to the Fox clan's palace in a flash. How is it? I've informed them. What are you doing now? Eldest brother, second brother, you 2 stay here and organize elite patrols to prevent the Water Clan from devouring the demon race on land. Also, you need to be wary of the Demon Emperor's experts kidnapping the Fox Clan warriors. Alright, we can do this. What's the scope of this defense? With your current strength, you can only be responsible for the Fox Clan's current territory. Don't force yourself and don't go out, especially not fight to the death. You have to know that you have become the enemy's main target. We understand this. What about you? What do you plan to do next? The 3 of us will go by some time. What we lack the most now is time. If we had another 3 to 5 years, we would be able to overcome any obstacle. What a pity. Swoosh! Before his words echoed in the air, Yun Yang, Ji Lingxi, and Shengguan Lingxiu had already vanished into thin air. This time, Yun Yang, Ji Lingxi, and Shengguan Lingxiu were flying at full speed. They did not tear through space to hurry on their journey. After all, their goal was to fly along the mountain range that extended from the Blood Soul Mountain. Along the way, the wind and clouds were turbulent and the air was filled with electricity. Their speed was so fast that they could not even see a shadow. Your Majesty, Heaven's Supreme Cloud has appeared again. He's still with the 2 women from before. He's now flying along the mountain range to the left of the Blood Soul Mountain, heading towards the demon race's border. His current goal is unknown. The news spread at once. The Phoenix Sovereign was very concerned about Yun Yang's whereabouts and wanted to get rid of him as soon as possible. The Phoenix Sovereign's gaze was solemn when he heard the news. Relay the order to all the clans. Have the Saint Masters take action immediately and guard the mountain range nearby. If you encounter Yun Yang, try your best to hold him back and wait for reinforcements. The high-level Saint Masters of the Dragon and Phoenix clans are to receive the request for reinforcements. Head there at once without delay. Sovereign of the Sea, the Saint Masters of the Sea clan are to patrol along the coastline as well. Stop Supreme Cloud immediately once he's spotted. The Phoenix Sovereign commanded as he leaped up. Eagle Sovereign, Crane Sovereign, Rock Sovereign, follow me. With a loud explosion, a gigantic phoenix appeared abruptly. Its entire body was covered in flames as if it was born from fire. Its wings were tens of thousands of feet long as it spread its wings. With just a flap of its wings, it had already traversed tens of thousands of miles of space as it sped towards the Blood Soul Mountain. As it moved, a hurricane whipped up abruptly. Along the way, monstrous waves were set off on the surface of the sea, rising higher and higher. It was as if half of the sea's water was being driven towards the direction of the Blood Soul Mountain. At this time, Yunyang had gradually left the Blood Soul Mountain range. If he took another step forward, he would be an ordinary mountain range, no longer within the scope of the mighty force left by the Lord Sovereign of the universe. It was also at this time that the 5 Saint Masters of the Demon Clan descended together on the peak of the nearby mountain range. They watched Yunyang's arrival with solemn expressions. Their gazes were focused on the places where Yunyang and the other two had passed, the endless vacuum that spanned thousands of miles. It was a burning black hole that was created by the friction at an extremely high speed, moving at the same speed. Supreme Cloud of the human race, the former fled like a rat. Now that he's back, does he intend to be buried here? Is Lord Phoenix Emperor's Nirvana flames still okay? A saint of the demon race cried out. Yunyang ignored the demon saint's provocation. His body descended like a meteor and he punched out fiercely. Chapter 1471. The 5 saints of the demon race roared in unison and flew up to meet Yunyang without evading. Obviously, they dared not let Yunyang's force land on the mountain below them. Once it happened, they would be unharmed, but the mountain below them was destined to be destroyed. Even though the demon race had laid out a far-reaching plan and did not hesitate to pay any price in order to complete the destruction of the world, there was still a loophole in this plan. It was the mountain peak that guided the flow of water. A mountain that could change the direction of the flow had to be of a certain size, which meant that there were not many of such mountains. For a pinnacle expert like Yunyang, as long as he landed a solid punch, the target mountain would definitely be destroyed. If Yunyang destroyed too many mountains, it would be enough to affect the strategy of annihilation. In fact, this was the fundamental reason why Shiman Fafu proposed to send all of the Bound of Universe's high-end combat power to destroy the demon race. At the same time, it was also the Phoenix Sovereign's order that the saints of the demon race were to entangle the human invaders at all costs. At this moment, both sides were saint-level experts, a total of 8 in total. They did not give way at all and started an extreme collision without any tricks. The demon race flew up from the mountain peak, working together to protect the peak beneath their feet. Yunyang and the other two fell from the sky with the momentum of destroying the mountain, without turning back. Both sides clashed fiercely at a height of about 4,000 feet above the mountain. According to the initial estimation of the demon race's saints, both sides should be fighting at a height of 6,000 feet. However, the speed of Yunyang and the other two was too fast, far exceeding the 5's estimation. The unexpected speed caused the hearts of the 5 saint race's saints to sink. They could not help but feel a sense of foreboding. In the next moment, a massive force that seemed to be able to collapse the heavens came crashing down from above. The 5 of them worked together to rise against the force, wanting to salvage the situation. However, it was only a moment of stalemate before they felt their bodies falling from the sky uncontrollably. In the air, 3 giant hands pressed down on the 5 saint race's saint race with an earth-shattering force, crashing down on the mountain that the 5 of them had been standing on. With a loud bang, the mountain split into pieces and disappeared from the ground like fireworks. The force unleashed by Yunyang and the other two had yet to end. It continued to press the 5 saint masters of the demon race deep into the ground. A moment later, a deafening explosion erupted from the ground. The seawater rose thousands of feet into the air. Then, a large amount of seawater surged into the gap that suddenly appeared. This scene was too sudden and unexpected. Many experts of the sea race who had just come close didn't have time to react before they were already dizzy from the violent vibration. There were also hundreds of millions of sea race who directly flipped over on their bellies and floated on the surface of the water, rushing into the land of dead silence along with the current. Countless strands of karmic chi silently soared into the sky, converging without a trace. Then, a saint of the ocean tribe shot up into the sky. Where is Supreme Cloud? The provocative voice was still ringing in their ears, but there was no sign of anyone on the surface of the water. The saint of the ocean tribe was still puzzled when he heard a sudden thunderous explosion. The surface of the sea seemed to explode as a few silhouettes dashed out. It was Yun Yang, Ji Lingxi, and Shengguan Yun. At this moment, the mystical qi hand that Yun Yang had unleashed was still holding the bodies of the 5 saint races' saint race. He ignored the saint of the ocean tribe and soared into the sky, as if he could not be seen. Ji Lingxi and Shengguan Lingxiu, on the other hand, were like 2 slender meteors that swayed towards the distance. Along the way, the 2 ladies attacked continuously, their targets being the mountains and peaks beneath them. Countless mountains along the way fell victim to their attacks, crumbling and turning into dust, no longer existing in this world. The attack just now was a head-on clash of a person's actual cultivation base. Although the 5 saint races' saint race had the advantage in numbers, their actual cultivation base was worlds apart from Yun Yang and the other 2. They crumbled under the combined attack of the trio. Yun Yang, Shengguan Lingxiu, and Shengguan Lingxi's cultivation base had reached the pinnacle of this world. They had recently consumed the radiance of sun and moon fruits and had improved further, reaching the level of half a step into the starry sky. Even if they could not be ranked among the top 3 of the Bound of Universe's pinnacle experts, they could at least be among the top 5. The 5 saint races who had joined forces to resist the attack were only beginner-level saints. How could they withstand the attack? They were defeated instantly. The moment Yun Yang broke through their resistance, he swiftly switched his mystical qi attack to the endless divine art. Channeling it at full force, it worked together with Emmy's boundless deific consciousness to lock and imprison the souls of the 5 demon saints. The souls of the saint races' souls were sealed in their crumbling bodies, unable to escape. What was more, Yun Yang had still ensured that the bodies of the demon saints remained intact despite the force of the fall. There was not a single scratch on them. Even the blood that they were about to spit out of their mouths was completely sealed back into their bodies. Saints can't be killed. Saints can't be killed. Yun Yang did not believe this. Where there's a law, there's a way to break it. Living beings can be killed. I won't let your physical bodies and divine souls have any chance to leak out, completely losing any chance of contact with the outside world. I'd like to see if you'll be killed by me. Put them down. From afar, a fiery red silhouette rushed over with a ferocious momentum. It was the Phoenix Emperor. How could Yun Yang listen to him? With a cold snort, he pulled out the divine edge and summoned the gate of life and death, 18 levels of hell. A strange force that belonged only to the netherworld surged from the blade. Then, with a crazy speed and momentum that could almost split heaven and earth and reconstruct the universe, the technique was unleashed. The 5 saints were all enveloped by the gate of life and death, 18 levels of hell, at full power. There was not the slightest deviation, nor was there any omission. The bodies of the 5 saints of the demon race were completely disintegrated in the blink of an eye. Then, 5 small demonic beasts that had completely materialized appeared in the air. Each small demonic beast was only the size of a palm. They had complete facial features and their fur was like a feather. It was probably because they were too pocket-sized that they gave off a very cute and interesting feeling at first glance. However, the extreme fear in the eyes of these 5 small demonic beasts diluted their cuteness. Stop! The Phoenix Emperor's roar was heart-wrenching and soul-stirring. Yun Yang was still as if he did not hear it. Without any hesitation, he swung his saber again the moment the 5 small demonic beasts appeared. Swoosh, 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 the 5 souls of the demon race saints were destroyed by Yun Yang's saber. As a whirlwind rose in the air, 5 inner cores that were emitting a holy glow appeared in the air with the disappearance of the 5 small demonic beasts. Yun Yang. The Phoenix Emperor's roar was already close to his ears, deafening. It was obviously doing its last resort to save the last chance of survival for the 5 demon race saints. However, a flash of green light flashed past. When the 5 inner cores disappeared, Yun Yang's body had already flown hundreds of thousands of feet away. Just as Yun Yang left, a ball of nirvanic flame exploded where he stood like a bomb, covering a radius of thousands of feet in an instant. However, it was still too late. Yun Yang, who was already aware of the Phoenix Emperor's nirvanic flame's attack, had already escaped and retreated. Ayaya, Emmy wailed in the space, trembling incessantly as it waved its tendrils, venting its uncontrollable agony. At the front end of its vines, about a foot long, it was burnt to a crisp by the nirvanic flame. This is what happens when you're greedy. Yun Yang snorted. I've already given up on the 5 inner cores, but you still wanted to snatch them away. When the Phoenix Emperor was completely mad, who else would it burn if not you? It's indeed a mystical root that can split heaven and earth apart. Being burnt by the nirvanic flame, it's only injured to this extent. Impressive, impressive indeed. Ayaya, Emmy's voice sounded even more aggrieved. Who wouldn't want to snatch something good? How could I be blamed for that? This was the cultivation essence of this world's pinnacle cultivators. But it really hurt. Ayaya, the way of the 5 elements complementing and subduing was that fire subdued wood. Although Emmy was a mystical root created by heaven and earth, it still belonged to the wood attribute. The nirvanic flame was almost the pinnacle of fire. How could Emmy not be injured when it stood out? Behind them, the Phoenix Emperor and Yun Yang were less than 10,000 feet apart. It was in hot pursuit. At this moment, the Phoenix Emperor's rage was about to burn the heavens. The 5 saints had been appointed by him, but Yun Yang had killed them right in front of his eyes. His soul had been destroyed, and he would never be able to reincarnate as long as he survived. Such an outcome was a slap to the Phoenix Emperor's face. Yun Yang. Stop, fight me fair and square. Despicable man. What a sneak attack. Hand over your inner core. Yun Yang turned a deaf ear to it, his mind set on escaping while the Phoenix Emperor was hot on his heels. The chase continued for some time, but the Phoenix Emperor was still faster. The gap between the two of them was shrinking bit by bit. After all, they were a flying race, the leader of all birds. Even though Yun Yang's speed was almost unparalleled in the world, he was still lacking compared to the Phoenix Emperor's speed that was at the pinnacle of this world. Ji Lingxi and Shengguan Lingxiu, who were further ahead, had moved a step earlier, but the distance between them had shortened even faster. Yun Yang cried out, "Stop destroying the mountains. Run!" The Phoenix Emperor cackled, "Where do you think you're going?" At that moment, a flash of light appeared in front of them. It was the Rock Emperor, as if he had stepped into reality from the void. Once he appeared, he revealed his true form. It was a cloud-piercing, golden-winged rock that was tens of thousands of feet tall when it spread its wings. Ji Lingxi and Shengguan Lingxiu, who were flying at top speed, could not stop in time. They were about to plunge into the Rock Emperor's embrace. When they managed to stop themselves, their faces were drained of color. Flustered, they barely managed to stop themselves, but the Rock Emperor was already close by. In the blink of an eye, more gigantic demonic emperors appeared. The Eagle Emperor, the Eagle Emperor, Yun Yang let out a long howl as he sped up once again. With a whoosh, he swept past them and kept the 2 ladies in his deific consciousness. With the previous lesson, Yun Yang had lost confidence in the ladies' absolute defense. Even though he knew that the 2 ladies possessed an extraordinary cultivation base that was enough to fight, he still did not want them to take the risk and enter the battle. The moment he put the 2 women into the space, his radical figure turned into a whirlwind that spun rapidly like a tornado. His speed was incomparably fast. At the same time, Saber Truth, Destiny Blade's 7 styles and 14 styles were unleashed. In the end, he used the purple jade flute as a sword and repeated the "what's the harm in slaughtering the entire world" technique, pointing it straight at the demonic emperors. With Yun Yang's cultivation base that was half a step away from the starry sky realm, he performed the convergence of saber and sword. Well, it would be more appropriate to call it the saber and sword turbulence this time. In short, he was going all out without holding anything back. As for the Phoenix Emperor, squeak, squeak, a tiny silhouette appeared abruptly in the battlefield without warning, facing the Phoenix Emperor's divine fire of nirvana head-on. Was he courting his own death, like a moth flying into a flame? As Yun Yang's saber and sword turbulence appeared, thousands of miles of land was instantly enveloped in a dazzling radiance. The saber light and sword turbulence were like the Milky Way, majestic and unstoppable. At this moment, even the sun in the sky lost its color and became dull. On the other side, the Eagle Emperor, Rock Emperor, Crane Emperor, and Eagle Emperor, the demonic and avian emperors exclaimed in unison when they were faced with this rare killer move, their faces filled with shock. Fortunately, the four emperors did not panic in the face of danger. They reacted quickly and unleashed their trump cards at once, counterattacking with all their might. At this moment, each of them felt a lethal threat, a threat that could threaten their lives. Other than the surging fear and surprise, the four pinnacle emperors actually felt a sense of novelty. How many years had it been? It had been far too long since someone had given them such a feeling. They did not expect that they would still feel like they were about to be killed and their lives were in danger today, even when the four emperors worked together. Then there was an earth-shattering explosion that overturned the heavens and overturned the earth. Yun Yang, who bore the brunt of the attack and bore the brunt of it, shot up into the sky like a meteor and disappeared. On the other side, a series of muffled grunts could be heard. Rock Emperor, Eagle Emperor, Crane Emperor, and Eagle Emperor, the four top-notch emperors of the demonic race spat a mouthful of blood at the same time and staggered 1,000 feet back in 4 different directions in the air. Within the 100 feet of space that they had retreated to, countless feathers poured down like a blizzard, almost covering the sky. Those were the feathers of the four emperors. In between the feathers that filled the sky, there were spots of blood that were hidden, a ghastly sight to behold. Under Yun Yang's all-out attack, the four emperors were all injured. Among them, the Crane Emperor was the most heavily injured. First, there was a wound that was hundreds of feet long on his stomach, blood gushing out like a fountain. It was a wound that had his stomach split open. There was also the saber light that flowed all over his body, especially the crimson dot on the top of his head, the crane's red crown, that had been chopped off. 1/5 of his head was gone. At first glance, it looked like a super big rotten persimmon, swaying in the air, bits of brain matter splattering everywhere. If such an injury had landed on an ordinary demon, it would have taken his life and soul. On the other side, with a sharp cry, a small silhouette rushed over like a moth to a flame, charging towards the overlord of fire, the Phoenix Emperor. Just how small was this figure? In any case, it was seriously disproportionate to the huge bodies of the beast emperors present. If it wasn't for the light shining on the small figure, which was as dazzling as a luminous pearl, the beast emperors felt that they most likely wouldn't have been able to see it. It was too small, probably about the size of a newborn chick, or even smaller. But this little fellow's flying speed was astonishingly fast. With a whoosh, it flew over, and no one knew how it did it. In any case, all the blood droplets and feathers in the air were swept away by it in one go. Then, it let out another long cry, as if it was turning around proudly. Just as the Phoenix Emperor was about to charge forward and unleash the sage's cage, it moved slightly as if it was taking a leisurely stroll and disappeared into thin air. Rock Emperor and the others were stunned, collectively dumbfounded as they looked at the Phoenix Emperor in disbelief. That little bird could actually escape from the Phoenix Emperor's grasp so easily? This isn't a joke, right? Or is there something wrong with my eyes? What's the Phoenix Emperor's cultivation level? This is simply something I can't even dream of. It's unbelievable. The Phoenix Emperor's expression was extremely ugly as it flashed over. What bird is that? Do any of you know it? Rock Emperor, Eagle Emperor, and the others? They were dumbfounded. At that moment, they even forgot about their injuries. This was because the Phoenix Emperor had asked that question. Feng Ling Tian said, "Happy National Day. I'm filled with emotions after watching the military parade. I feel like I'm a member of the honor guard of the three armies. They're all so handsome." Chapter 1472. After a while, the Rock Emperor grimaced in shock and asked, "You don't know either? There's actually a bird in this world that you don't know?" The Eagle Emperor and the other sovereigns looked confused. If a bird did not even know the Phoenix Emperor, the king of birds, it would be a strange thing and a ridiculous thing to say. That bird, isn't it afraid of my fire of nirvana? The Phoenix Emperor's expression was filled with confusion and even a hint of fear. It was only when the emperors heard this that they realized something terrifying. The Phoenix Sovereign had chased after Yun Yang relentlessly and there was not much distance between them. How could Yun Yang have managed to gain the space to attack the four emperors while the sabers and swords were attacking them? It was because of the bird. Just now, when Yun Yang launched an extreme counterattack, the Phoenix Emperor on the other side had also unleashed the fire of nirvana. While the four sovereigns were withstanding Yun Yang's sabers and swords, Yun Yang should also be withstanding the Phoenix Emperor's fire of nirvana. Why wasn't Yun Yang attacked? Was it still because of the bird? The four sovereigns had fought Yun Yang with all their might and resisted the sabers and swords. They had no time to pay attention to anything else. Their understanding of the bird was limited to its bizarre speed, its other abilities were not even worth mentioning. However, if the bird was not afraid of the fire of nirvana, it would be a completely different story. The fire of nirvana was said to be able to burn anything, be it gold, silver, copper, iron, stone, even the mystical chi in the air, the wind and clouds, everything that was tangible or intangible could be burned. Even Yun Yang himself had been restrained in the previous battle, proving its terrifying power. However, the bird was not afraid. Not only was it amazing, but it also shrouded the unbreakable legend of the fire of nirvana in a layer of haze. The Phoenix Emperor took a deep breath. Just now, that strange little bird charged into the range of my nirvana's heavenly flames. It actually displayed a very comfortable and satisfied look, and then it even devoured my nirvana's heavenly flames. Comfortable? Satisfied? Devoured? The faces of the Eagle Emperor and the other emperors were filled with shock. There was actually a living being in this world that could devour the fire of nirvana. What kind of monster was that? Fortunately, this strange bird is still a fledgling. It only swallowed a small portion, and it reached a satiated state. The Phoenix Emperor's face was filled with lingering fear. Her usual wisdom and steadiness were completely gone at this moment. Just what in the world is that? It's definitely not something ordinary, the Phoenix Monarch frowned and said, although the contact just now was brief, I faintly felt that this little bird's body has the feeling of our Phoenix bloodline. In fact, if we're just talking about the purity of the bloodline, it should be even purer than our Phoenix clan. Or perhaps, it should be purer than our demon clan's Phoenix bloodline. An indescribable flame gradually burned in the Phoenix Emperor's eyes. Emperor Peng, Emperor Hawk, and the others were very familiar with such gazes. That was the meaning of plunder. They instantly guessed what the Phoenix Emperor was thinking. If they could capture this little bird, extract its bloodline, and fuse it into the Phoenix Emperor's body, in fact, even Emperor Rock and Eagle Emperor were tempted, let alone the Phoenix Emperor. A bloodline even higher than the Phoenix Emperor. What kind of concept was that? The Phoenix Emperor was deep in thought. It's extraordinarily fast and its trajectory is unpredictable. It can be immune to and even devour the nirvanic flame. However, its attack strength is only at the Saint Lord level, at most a third-level Saint Lord. That little bird is very likely Yun Yang's pet. When the word pet was mentioned, the Phoenix Emperor was practically gritting his teeth. Such a good thing had been taken as a pet by this fellow. However, the question remained. What exactly was this bird? How could it have such a transcendent and domineering background? More and more experts from the Demon Clan and Sea Clan gathered, moving mountains from all directions to block the coastline that Yun Yang and the other two had destroyed in a frenzy, ensuring that the flow of the water would not change. As the Phoenix Emperor and the others were not too far away and had arrived quickly, the damage caused by Yun Yang and the other two was relatively limited. It was not as much as the previous time, so it was not as difficult to repair it. However, the losses this time were far greater than the previous time. In other words, it could not be compared at all. In this battle, Yun Yang had killed 5 saint-level experts from the Demon Clan in one go. Although the dead were only beginner saints, they were still the top combat power of the Demon Clan. Furthermore, this reality had also announced another thing: saints were no longer immortal, they could be killed as well. Saints were not absolutely immortal. Since the beginning of time, there had been saint-level experts who perished due to the depletion of their lifespan. There were those who committed suicide because they felt that there was nothing left to live for. There were even those who fought with the determination to die and perished in the end when their soul, and blood were completely destroyed. However, it was definitely the first case in the history of the Bound of Universe to be killed by the opponent right from the start of the battle. Yun Yang had created history once again. In spite of this, the other impact that Yun Yang had caused was even more terrifying. The final strike that targeted the Eagle Emperor and the other 4 emperors, be it in terms of power or momentum, had reached a terrifying level. With a single strike, the 4 top-notch emperors were all injured. Among them, the Crane Sovereign was the most severely injured. Not only was his stomach split open, but part of his head was also chopped off. The Crane Clan's red crown, which had always been the pride of the Crane Clan, was chopped off by Yun Yang. It was a ghastly sight. One had to know that the red crane crown was not only a symbol of status in the Crane tribe, but it also contained the sky poison power that the Crane Emperor had accumulated over his lifetime. The Crane Sovereign's heavenly poison, the Phoenix Sovereign's heavenly fire, the Rock Sovereign's heavenly slayer, and the Eagle Sovereign's heavenly speed had always been the demon's life-saving Dharma treasures. Now, Crane Sovereign's sky poison hadn't even been put to use, and it was directly destroyed. The loss of the Crimson Crane not only meant that he had lost his greatest trump card, but it also concerned the Crane Sovereign's life soul. He had to find a way to recover it. However, for the Crane Sovereign to reassemble the Crimson Crane crown in such a hurry was a huge problem that even he was worried about. Yun Yang's cultivation base has improved so quickly, he's already become the demon's greatest threat. His current combat power has greatly surpassed Dongfang, Shiman, and the others. The Eagle Sovereign said solemnly, in the past, Dongfang Haoran and the others wouldn't have dared to come here and cause trouble even though they were confident of their cultivation base. Ever since Shiman and Bei Gong came together and were almost killed by us, they haven't come here again. The Phoenix Sovereign cut in, but Yun Yang is different. When Yun Yang comes to us, he can come and go as he pleases. This is no longer a threat, but a fatal crisis. We have to eliminate this fiend as soon as possible. When Dongfang Haoran and the others come, we can still predict their return route and our own movement speed is faster than theirs. As long as we discover them, they can only charge out with all their might. If they can't, they can only be killed somewhere. But this Yun Yang can come and go without a trace, coming and going as he pleases. The Phoenix Sovereign sighed softly. It's fine if we can't discover him in advance when he comes, but both sides have already met and even when we're outflanking him, he can still escape easily in front of us. We can't lock on to him. He's a threat that must be eliminated. If this child isn't eliminated, the demon's plan won't succeed and there won't be a day of peace. Looking at the millions of demons who were busy on the surface of the sea and the countless whales and sharks that swam back and forth in the sea, they activated their water element powers and caused the seawater to flow back. Countless flood dragons stirred up waves on the surface of the water, turning the seawater that gushed out from the gap into giant waves that reversed and redirected them to a predetermined path. However, when the Phoenix Sovereign came over, the commotion was too great, almost driving half of the sea over. The waves were towering, and with the force of the seawater that the Phoenix Sovereign had stirred up, the Sea Clan that had just arrived could not stop it. It was only when a few saints of the Sea Clan rushed over and attacked together that they managed to force the seawater back. Even so, the shorelines in many places were still exposed with mud and silt, in Fox Emperor City. Countless experts of the fox race looked at the huge waves surging towards them. In almost an instant, they had already reached the top of the city walls. Countless buildings in the city had also started to sway in the seawater. Everyone was so nervous that their bodies were covered in sweat, and they focused on preparing for battle. Who would have thought that in less than an hour, the seawater would recede with a swoosh? With Fox Emperor City as the center, the area within 1,000 miles was revealed to be the original flatland. All the cultivators of the Fox clan were dumbfounded, standing rooted to the ground, no matter how hard they tried. Was this a drill by the Sea Clan? How preposterous! Isn't he toying with us? On the other side, countless demons worked together and finally plugged the gap again. The flow of the water returned to its predetermined path. The Phoenix Sovereign and the others reinforced it immediately, but the dozen or so saints of the demon clan sighed as they reinforced it. It could not go on like this. It had only been 4 days and it had been repaired twice. According to the Phoenix Sovereign's plan, even if the entire bound of universe came to attack, the demons would not be afraid. Instead, there was a chance that they could annihilate the human race's top combat power. However, there was only Yun Yang and 2 women now. Their combat power was far more powerful than expected. Not only that, they actually had the ability to kill saints. This was too domineering. Furthermore, an expert like that could come and go as he pleased. There was no way to stop him, so there was nothing that could be done about it. If this went on for a long time, everyone would not be able to do anything. They could only guard the waterway in groups of 3 to 5 and turn into construction workers at all times. When the other party was in the mood, he could come over and smash a few mountains. Then, everyone would start moving things over from afar and fortifying them after moving them over. We're saints. We're not construction workers. We don't want to do this. We'd rather fight. Can't you show us some basic respect? Saints were no longer absolutely immortal now. Yun Yang was too ruthless, too ruthless. I know that everyone is still fearful of Yun Yang's ability to kill a saint in an instant with his own strength. Next, all of our saints must be mobilized. Find Yun Yang and kill him. The Phoenix Sovereign pondered for a moment and said, otherwise, we'll be too passive. Yun Yang obviously won't give up. He'll definitely come to destroy again. I believe that his goal will not only be limited to the waterway, but also the lone demon saints. Rock Emperor, Eagle Emperor, and the other experts all looked constipated. F*CK, what the F*CK is this? Not only have we all become laborers, we'll have to risk our lives. We're all the top existences of the demon race. This is too depressing. As the repair work progressed, many of the sea demons were so tired that they revealed their true forms. They floated on the water surface with their bellies up. Looking at the bare mountains that stood tall again, many low-level demons were so excited that they almost cried. Mother, it's not easy. I'm so tired. At this moment, a lazy voice suddenly rang out. Ah! It's been repaired so quickly. The Phoenix Sovereign tensed up when he heard the voice. Without thinking, he scattered a ball of nirvanic fire, its power covering a whole 2,000 miles. But in exchange, there was only a loud bang. One of the mountain dams that had just been rebuilt suddenly exploded. Seawater surged and surged into the gap that had suddenly appeared. Countless experts from the demon race and sea race, including the saints, had their eyes reddened. This was too much. He was really going too far in bullying demons. At this moment, everyone, including the Sea Emperor, rushed over like a madman. The fruits of their hard work had been destroyed by a single blow from you. This was intolerable. It was not over yet. Facing such a public condemnation, Yun Yang almost broke down. He was so scared that he was frozen in midair, waiting for death. On the other side were more than 50 saints, more than 100 half-saints, hundreds of saint lords, thousands of supreme venerables, and tens of thousands of supreme emperors. In short, there were countless combat forces from the demon race charging over from all directions with bloodshot eyes. In addition, there were also the Sea Emperor, the Phoenix Emperor, the Rock Emperor, the Eagle Emperor, and the other super experts whose abilities were not inferior to Yun Yang's. Yun Yang, who knew that he had angered the crowd, turned and ran. I only wanted to buy time. I know that you guys were caught off guard and killed this time, and the saints must be in a mess. I only wanted to take the opportunity to expand the battle and make you guys even more distracted. As long as I destroy it again, most of the Saint Realm experts of the demon race will be pinned down on this coastline. But I didn't expect all of you to go crazy this time. Swiftly entering stealth mode, he transformed into wind and clouds and cast his divine powers, intending to escape and wait for the chance to make a comeback. It was a pity that Yun Yang was being too optimistic. The Sea clans were also ganging up on him now. Back then, his manifestation powers had been easily countered by a certain Sea clan. How could there be an exception this time? With a roar from the Sea Emperor, the entire sky turned blue like a sea curtain. He's over there. In the sea curtain, a faint silhouette that was running for his life was reflected in the eyes of all the demons. It was Yun Yang. In the next moment, a crack resounded as the sky-blue ocean suddenly transformed into a boundless black hole, and it seemed to possess the might to devour everything. This was Sea Emperor's signature skill, Mystical Azure Sea. Everything in this world, whether tangible or intangible, or mystical, could not be hidden under this space-shifting, absolute ocean and sky scenery. A muffled grunt came from the boundless black hole. Yun Yang had obviously been restrained by this skill and suffered a great loss. A gust of wind blew over. Sea Emperor roared, "That gust of wind is Yun Yang." Suddenly, a ball of nirvanic flame rushed over and engulfed the gust of wind at once, burning it. Yun Yang appeared abruptly and shouted. Using the divine edge in his hand as a sword, he performed the "what harm is there in slaughtering the world" move again. As one with the sword, his speed increased tenfold and he charged out of the nirvanic flame's range. Yun Yang's speed was already extremely fast, only slightly slower than the few kings of the bird species. Now that his speed had increased tenfold, none of the demons present could catch up. Just as he was about to escape again, a shout was heard. "Die together!" The Phoenix Emperor's shout shook the void. The demonic experts in front of Yun Yang all wore tragic expressions on their faces. Each of them was an elite of the demonic race. How could they not see that the sword skill that Yun Yang was using was not only incredibly fast, but also terrifyingly destructive? They could only avoid it and could not block it. If they were to forcefully block it, only death awaited them. However, with the Phoenix Emperor's shout and the order of death, countless demons burned their lives and souls in an instant, charging towards Yun Yang with no regard for their lives. There were even a few saint lords and a few half-saints who burned everything they had at that moment, charging towards Yun Yang without looking back, charging towards the sword skill of death. Boom, 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 in the blink of an eye, hundreds of demonic and marine experts had turned into balls of flame in front of Yun Yang, but they were like moths flying into a flame, mantis trying to stop a chariot. They were unable to block the "what harm is there in the world" move, unable to stop its momentum at all. Even so, there were still many experts from both races who charged forward without hesitation, using their bodies, their lives, and everything they had to block Yun Yang's momentum. The demon's sacrifice was not without a price. Although the "what harm is there in the world" move in killing countless demons, its momentum was gradually slowing down. There was a limit to a human strength, and it was the same with the technique. Even if it was an invincible and perfect technique, it still had its limits. Under the reckless sacrifice of countless demons, so what if the "what harm is there in slaughtering the world" move? At this time, the Phoenix Emperor and the rest who were chasing after Yun Yang with all their might were about to catch up to him. The Sea Clan Sea King's strongest mystic technique, Azure Sea, enveloped Yun Yang once again, further weakening the "what harm is there in the world" move. With a flip, the Falcon Emperor soared into the sky, turning into a ray of light. His speed was actually not much slower than Yun Yang's. In the process of his mad dash, the area around him was ablaze due to the friction. The demons in front were burning their souls to stop Yun Yang, while the demons on the left and right did not care if they were brothers of the same blood, unleashing their ultimate skills with all their might. In short, they did not distinguish friend from foe, only hoping for a chance to attack, disrupt, and affect Yun Yang. As long as they could kill this detestable bastard here, even if they had to die together with him, they would have no regrets. They would be able to vent their anger. King Hell, there's no end to your mess. If you don't want it to end, we'll send you to the end together. They were going all out. All the experts of the Demon Clan and Sea Clan were going all out, attacking Yun Yang with all their might. Seeing that the massacre of the world was coming to an end and that he was surrounded by demonic hordes, he could not advance or retreat. His eyes were filled with enemies. He let out a long howl and converted his depleted mystical chi into the endless divine art. What harm was there in unleashing another massacre of the world? The sword light turned into a rainbow that streaked across the sky in a frenzy as Yun Yang's speed increased further. However, the demon's encirclement was complete. Even with the "what harm is there in slaughtering the world" move, he still could not break through the siege. Although the Phoenix Emperor and Eagle Emperor, who were hot on his heels, had yet to arrive, the thousands of attacks from the Demon Clan and Sea Clan experts on the left and right had already arrived. Yun Yang's majestic sword light was shaken and scattered by the terrifying force, his aura dissipating. He could not help but yell angrily, "Is this necessary? Is this necessary? I didn't do anything. Didn't I just shatter a mountain? I didn't even hurt or kill your people." All the experts of the Demon Clan did not respond, attacking with all their might with bloodshot eyes. "Is this necessary? Is this necessary?" In the blink of an eye, the Phoenix Emperor's silhouette flickered and traversed the space in an eerie manner. When he was about 500 feet away from Yun Yang, he swung his saber down in a frenzy. Law of Space. The Phoenix Emperor did not hesitate to burn his phoenix blood to activate the law of space, killing with a single slash. The mystic art of burning blood was an extreme combat skill that would injure the user first, regardless of whether he injured the enemy or not. It was evident how intense the Phoenix Emperor's desire to kill Yun Yang was. To put it bluntly, what Lord Supreme Cloud had done this time was truly deranged and outrageous. It was too much of a bully. The others had worked so hard to reconstruct the waterway, and then you came to destroy it. Even if you came another day later, you wouldn't have incurred the public's wrath. The reality was that Yun Yang had just finished reconstructing the waterway when Yun Yang appeared and destroyed it. The many experts of the Demon Clan and Sea Clan did not even care about the gushing seawater anymore. All that was left in their minds was to kill Yun Yang. Those who were too slow to catch up had nowhere to vent their anger. Their hair was standing on end, their hairs standing on end like porcupines. He was insane and intolerable. He was a real intolerable bully. "I'll kill you, Yun Yang, even if I have to die." The Phoenix Emperor's attack set 1,000 miles of land ablaze. Countless experts from the Demon Clan and Sea Clan were engulfed by the Nirvana flame. They were bathed in flames, but they still charged towards Yun Yang with a roar. Charge, charge, charge. Charge and self-destruct. Blow up this son of a b*tch who has gone too far. He was a real piece of sh*t. Yun Yang, who knew that he had fallen into a tight encirclement and that he would die here if he could not break out, urged the endless divine art with all his might to maintain his momentum of slaughtering the entire world. At this time, a sharp sound of wind breaking came from behind him. It was the Phoenix Emperor's attack. Yun Yang's thoughts spun quickly, but he made up his mind to ignore the Phoenix Emperor's attack and continued to charge forward with his head held high. Finally, the hundreds of experts of the Demon Clan in front of him were blasted apart, turning into smoke and fire in the air. A path of survival had finally appeared. In spite of this, the series of extreme urging and the opponent's extreme counterattack had successfully injured Yun Yang again and again. Blood trickled from the corners of his lips as he groaned inwardly. He had really poked a hornet's nest this time. How could these Demon Clan and Sea Clan be so petty? "I'm just here to blow up a mountain." Before he could finish his rant, he felt a prickling pain on his back. The Phoenix Emperor's full-force attack was about to reach him. As Yun Yang continued to charge with his sword, he drew a half-circle with his left hand, pulling it towards his back, intending to divert the Phoenix Emperor's attack. It was a pity that most of Yun Yang's spiritual energy was still being channeled. So what if he slaughtered the entire world? The diverting only had 10 to 20% of the usual effect. How could it divert the Phoenix Emperor's attack? There were no tricks in the attack, at least 90% of it had hit its target. Yun Yang cried out as blood spewed from his mouth, mixed with pieces of his internal organs. However, his momentum doubled once again as he charged out of the encirclement. Yun Yang knew that this was a dangerous battle and that he was in a precarious situation. He had to make a decision. He had not really intended to divert the Phoenix Emperor's attack with all his might, that was simply unrealistic. He had only hoped to slightly diminish the attack's sharpness, not to hit him with all his might so that he could borrow strength when he was hit. The first half of those who were hit were as Yun Yang had predicted. Taking the full force of the Phoenix Emperor's attack head-on, he borrowed the momentum and flew away, killing the remaining 40 to 50 experts of the demon race in front of him, turning them into fireworks in the sky, their souls destroyed. Although Yun Yang had correctly predicted the first half of the Phoenix Emperor's attack and successfully escaped the encirclement, he had not expected the second half of the attack. The injuries he had sustained were too severe, far exceeding his estimation. What little was left of his basic chi was almost completely dispersed by the attack. Yun Yang was truly out of options this time. "You can burn your blood and soul, can't I do the same?" He began to burn his soul as well, increasing his speed to the maximum. Swoosh, 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 with a loud roar, all the seawater around him turned into countless sharp arrows and soared towards Yun Yang's direction of escape. With a low grunt, blood splattered across the sky. All the demons had seen the bastard Supreme Cloud, who only knew how to destroy, break through the Sea Emperor's water sword mountain in a mangled state, vanishing swiftly without a trace. Despite Yun Yang's disappearance, the Eagle Emperor, Rock Emperor, and the others did not slow down or stop their pursuit. They charged 3,000 to 4,000 miles away, cursing incessantly, F***ck. F***ck. Behind them, the Phoenix Emperor, who had just realized that his opponent had escaped, gritted his teeth, no longer caring about his demeanor as he cursed, F***king bastard. Beside him, the Dog Emperor who had just arrived looked aggrieved and awkward. Who did I offend? He had been implicated for no reason. I feel bitter, but I don't dare to say it. The Sea Emperor stood in the air and looked into the distance. He sighed and said, even with such a lineup, he still managed to escape. It's unbelievable. Although the Phoenix Emperor didn't want to reply, she still didn't want to go against her conscience to speak. She could only sigh, "It's really hard to believe. With such a lineup, even without your majesty, it would be more than enough." Neptune's eyes widened. Didn't they say that the emperor of the Phoenix clan was a wise man? Did he know how to talk or not? The sovereign of the seas thought for a moment and said in a muffled voice, "Her Majesty Phoenix Empress is right. I believe that even if it's Her Majesty Phoenix Empress, facing such a lineup, even if she doesn't die, a few nirvanic rebirths are unavoidable." The Phoenix Emperor didn't want to talk to him anymore. The Ocean Emperor sighed, "It's a pity that all of this happened too suddenly. There was no time to set up the sealed sky formation. If we had trapped him somewhere with the formation, I'm afraid that even if he was twice as strong, he would not be able to escape death." The other sovereigns agreed wholeheartedly. If the formation had been used as a foundation to trap him, Yunyang would only end up dying here, no matter how skillful he was. However, all of this could only be a thought. It was more important to clean up the mess now. Once they thought about how they had to continue working, their eyes reddened and they panted, cursing as they worked. F***ck. What a piece of sh**t. What the hell? Your father still has a knot in my heart that I didn't manage to kill him. F***ck, if this bastard comes again, your father will self-destruct when I see him. I still feel like my chest is going to explode. Me too. F***ck. Feng Ling Tian said, "Money stains the spiritual heart, while profit turns it into a human cesspool. Today, I'm deeply touched. It has nothing to do with me. It's just that I've seen the ecology of the world." Chapter 1473. Yunyang did not retreat in one piece this time. In fact, he had flown back in pieces. When the Fox Emperor and Cat Ancestor, who stood at the top of the city wall to welcome his return, saw him, they dared not recognize him until Yunyang said, "Bring me back to heal quickly." It was only then that the two sovereigns could confirm that the bloodied mess in front of them was actually their third sworn brother. Ji Lingxi and Shengguan Lingxiu came out of Yunyang's deific consciousness space and almost fainted from the heartache when they saw Yunyang in this state. Mesmes. Yunyang was panting heavily. "Let me heal my wounds quietly. Those fellows have gone mad. Everyone, let's gang up on me." The two sovereigns, the Fox Emperor and Cat Ancestor, could not help but roll their eyes a few times. "If it were us, we would also go crazy and try to kill you. That's moving a mountain, do you think it's a game? Even a sage powerhouse would be exhausted like a dog if they wanted to move a mountain from a great distance to the target location. Yet, you've destroyed it 3 times in 4 days. We're all F***king surprised that you can come back with one breath." The injuries Yunyang had suffered this time were not to be underestimated. They were even more severe than when he was burned by the flame of heaven scorching previously. Although the previous injury was difficult to heal, it was only the flame of heaven scorching that he had to focus on. This time, however, he had incurred the wrath of the masses. Just the shock to his internal organs had already reached the point of no return. His 5 viscera and 6 bowels had all turned into mush. Since there was no hope of recovery, they had to be reconstructed. His flesh and blood felt like it had been sliced into 1,000 pieces, not just 1,000 cuts, but 1,000 cuts until there was nothing left. Even his head and eyes were blasted while his legs were broken into 17 or 18 segments. His bones were still barely connected, leaving only his right arm that was not broken. It was an extremely tragic sight. After sending Yunyang to the meditation room to heal, the Fox Emperor and Cat Ancestor sighed deeply. Within these 4 days, he has only shown himself here for less than a day. Yes, he was severely injured and on the verge of death twice in just 1 day. Moreover, it's getting more and more serious each time. It's unprecedented for a saint-level practitioner to be able to injure him like this. The two emperors looked at each other speechlessly. This guy didn't look like a desperado, but why was he playing with his life like he didn't care about it? She asked Shangguan Lingxiu. Has he always been like this? Shangguan Lingxiu thought about it and said, it wasn't this serious before. Most of the time, he was knocked unconscious or severely injured. He probably didn't dare to faint this time, that's why. Fox Emperor, Cat Ancestor. The Fox Emperor and Cat Emperor were not the only ones who did not expect it. Yunyang himself did not expect to be so severely injured during his second turn. It was far beyond his expectations. At least, in the depths of his heart, he had never imagined that the demon race's counterattack would be so crazy. It should be known that in the battle just now, he had killed hundreds of thousands of Demon Clan and Sea Clan members. None of them were ordinary demons. Any one of them was an elite among the elites of the two clans. If the Demon Clan in the sea who had been killed by the shockwaves of the battle and the Demon Clan who had been burned to death by the Phoenix Emperor Flame of Nirvana, the number would increase by more than 1 million. The most obvious proof was that after these two battles, he had already collected half of the chi of karma required for the 8th level of the endless divine art. Fighting was indeed the best way to become stronger. It was just that, it was really painful, itchy, and uncomfortable. Yunyang moaned outside while Emmy, which was in the space, bristled again. What's going on? It's only 2 battles, how did I exhaust nearly 50 streams of chi of vitality? My life force has been drained as well. There's never been such a huge drain before. What's up with this little bird? Why was it that after taking a stroll outside, it had become so arrogant? The few feathers on its body seemed to have gained a lot of luster. You little bird, if you don't have any feathers, then so be it. We're used to it. Why did you bring in so many strange feathers? There were feathers from eagles, cranes, and even phoenixes. There were so many of them, but no matter how many feathers there were, could they be used to supplement this little bird? While Emmy was transferring another wave of air of vitality to Yunyang, it stole a glance at Gigi's direction. It was shocked to find that the plethora of feathers, so many of them, were all gone, reduced to ashes. The culprit of all this, the little bird that had been sleeping on the mountain of feathers, was now jumping around in the deific consciousness space. It hasn't even been 2 hours since then. How did so many feathers turn into ashes? Also, the little bird seemed to have grown a little bigger. However, it was good that the little bird had changed. It was not the current priority. Emmy continued to transfer energy to Yunyang to help with his recovery. If it were not for the fact that he had obtained so much karmic energy this time, Emmy really did not want to care about him anymore. As a plant, Emmy also felt that Yunyang had crossed the line in today's incident. He was insane and had gone too far. Yunyang had moved the mountain to fill in the gaps and diverted the water channel. He had just completed the task with great difficulty and had not even had the time to wipe his sweat before he had gone over to blow it up. Even after considering his position, it was still too much. It was infuriating. Yunyang had recuperated for half a month, but he had yet to fully recover. However, he could feel his condition recovering and his cultivation base growing at every moment. It was just that the recovery of his physical body was much more difficult than he had imagined. It was unusually slow. Saint cultivators were immortal and could be reborn from a single drop of blood. No matter how severe the injury was, they could recover in a short period of time. Just like the first time Yunyang had fought so many Saint Realm demons alone, most of them were just beginner-level saints. They had been torn to shreds by the divine edge many times, but they could still recover in a short period of time and rejoin the battle. It was probably because Yunyang's attack mode was singular. Although it was powerful, it could not penetrate the demon's soul and soul directly. It only destroyed their physical bodies and did not affect the overall situation. The injury that Yunyang had suffered this time was different from the others. It was a combination of the demon's various tactics, arcane skills, and even the self-detonation of their souls. Therefore, Yun Yang's physical body was left with countless different forces and soul fragments of the demons. Even with the mystical endless divine art, it could only grind away the power of those forces bit by bit. How could Yun Yang's injuries recover in a short period of time? To put it bluntly, if it were not for the endless divine art and Emmy's help, Yun Yang would not be able to reconstruct his physical body and recover to his original state without tens of thousands of years. Indeed, Yun Yang's injuries were as severe as they could be. Of course, Yun Yang had the help of the endless divine art and Emmy, as well as the medicinal effect of the radiance of sun and moon fruit earlier. As his injuries recovered bit by bit, it further stimulated the medicinal effect of the radiance of sun and moon fruit, allowing the medicinal effect to be absorbed faster and earlier. In a sense, it was a blessing in disguise. Such a bastard, such a deranged person, such a shameless person, after suffering retribution and suffering serious injuries, he was able to obtain many benefits. How could one reason this? One could only sigh and say that the heavenly Tao was unfair and the main character was tyrannical. In between, Ji Lingxi and Shengguan Lingxiu suggested that they should sneak over and wreak havoc again. They would not linger on the fight and would run away immediately. However, Yun Yang thought it over and over again and firmly stopped the girls from doing so. Even though the two girls had the defensive power laid down by the cosmic experts and their cultivation base was at the pinnacle of this world, in addition to the strategy of escaping 1,000 miles with a single strike, Yun Yang still dared not let the two girls try. With his ability, his wind and cloud manifestation, his mystical qi cultivation base, the endless divine art, Emmy's support, and the mystical weapons like the purple jade flute and the divine edge, he would still end up in such a miserable state when he was surrounded by the demons. If Ji Lingxi and Shengguan Lingxiu really went over, the chances of success would be extremely high, but there was a 1 in a million chance that they might not be able to return. This was not something to be trifled with. No matter how high-level the defensive power was, the new clothes that were said to be flawless and impenetrable, since they existed in this world, it meant that they were not invulnerable. The time when the Phoenix Emperor had injured Ji Lingxi had already proven this point. Not to mention the fact that the rebounding force could not really kill a saint-level expert. If the two women were surrounded by many saint-level experts, once the two of them exhausted their strength, it would be time for them to die. With the manpower of the demon race and the Sea clan, it was not a difficult task to trap the two girls to death. After what he had done, who knew how many people would be waiting in the mountains with bloodshot eyes? As the person directly involved, Yun Yang knew very well how badly he had offended them, however, it was all worth it. At the very least, he had exposed 3 pinnacle experts of this world to wreak havoc, and each of them was more ruthless than the last. Any one of them could not be stopped by a high-level saint of the demon race alone. If it was a beginner-level saint of the demon race who had encountered Yun Yang and the others, they would only be sending themselves to their deaths. Even if Yun Yang was injured and his combat power was diminished, the other two were still unscathed and fully equipped with combat power. The demon race had to prevent them from wreaking havoc again. Since it was necessary, it was only meaningful for the demon race's high-level experts to guard the defense personally. Otherwise, they would only end up repairing the mountain again. After all, in terms of strategy, as long as the demon race's experts guarded there and did not go to the Bloody Soul Mountain to wreak havoc, it would mean that they had succeeded in buying time. With this half a month's buffer, the Bound of Universe's military force should be able to gather again. During the time when Yun Yang was recovering, the Fox Emperor, the Cat Ancestor, and the high-level experts under them were so busy that their feet did not rest. They ran around the entire Fox clan's territory tirelessly. They blocked the demon race and Sea clan experts who came to kidnap the Fox clan warriors or fought them. This led to the escalation of the battle. Even experts like the Cat, Tunton, came back covered in wounds and on the brink of death. He was so close to losing his life. On the second day, however, the Fox Emperor and the rest went out as usual without any hesitation. There was no other reason than that the Fox clan was truly at a critical juncture of life and death. There was still hope if they worked hard to survive. If they waited passively, they would only be waiting for death. Despite the Fox Emperor and the rest doing their best, there were still many Fox clan citizens who were wandering outside being captured every day. The Fox Emperor and the rest brought back many of the Fox clan citizens to Fox Emperor City and leveled the nearby mountains to settle the Fox clan's people there. However, it was futile no matter how hard they tried. After all, the Fox clan's plains were too large, especially since the tide had gradually risen 4 to 5 days ago. The situation was getting more and more serious. The Fox Emperor and the rest struggled hard, but in another sense, they were merely struggling at death's door. The only difference between them and the former was effort and passivity. In spite of this, the Fox Emperor and the Cat Ancestor seemed to be doing so regardless of the consequences. It was as if they could not wait any longer. This puzzled Ji Lingxi and Shengguan Lingxiu, who saw everything. Half a month later. Apart from those who had been captured, eaten, or died, the rest of the people of the Fox clan outside the territory of the Fox clan had basically been brought to the Fox Emperor City or nearby areas. 3 months. Yun Yang's 3-month time limit, 20 days have passed. The Fox Emperor stood on the city wall with his arms behind his back, looking at the ocean beneath the city with a deep frown. There's still 2 months and 10 days left. The Cat Ancestor sat on the battlement, sighing without a care for his image. Perhaps we only have these 2 months left to live. One had to know that the Phoenix Emperor said within 3 months. Don't overlook the word within. The Phoenix Emperor said within, most likely, they'll act earlier. The Fox Emperor said coldly, the sea has already risen to the bottom of the city. It's very likely that they want to capture us alive and are unwilling to force us to the point of mutual destruction, that's why they haven't drowned the entire city. If the sea were to rise a little more, the Fox Emperor City won't be able to hold on. If we continue to hold on, the entire city will descend into despair. When that time comes, it'll be the time when we reveal our true intentions. I can foresee that the Phoenix Emperor will state his conditions then. To make both of us surrender in exchange for a chance of survival for the entire Fox clan, this is a necessary tactic. If we don't agree, the consequence will be mutual destruction. The Fox clan and the Cat clan will not be spared, their bloodline will be cut off, and they'll be extinct in this world. If we agree, the Fox clan and the Cat clan can ensure that their bloodline will continue even if the situation is more difficult. However, can the Phoenix Emperor's promise still be as good as it was in the past? The Fox Emperor said faintly, it doesn't matter how good a promise is. I'm only asking you, if it really comes to that time and this condition is raised, will you agree or disagree? The Cat Ancestor was dumbfounded, his eyes wide and speechless. Agree or disagree? It was a simple question, but the Cat Ancestor thought about it for a long time and still looked troubled, unable to answer. How about it? Don't you know what decision you'll make? The Fox Emperor chuckled and said, anyway, if the day really comes and I entrust my son to Yun Yang, the possibility of me agreeing to it is still very high. I believe that when the Phoenix Emperor raises such a condition, even Eagle and Rock won't be able to say anything. After all, we agreed to it ourselves. Even if we were forced, we still agreed to it. The Fox Emperor's chuckle was bleak. The Cat Ancestor stood up in frustration and said, can you stop saying such depressing words? I'm only asking you, what do we do now? Are we going to stretch our necks and wait for that day to come? The Fox Emperor's tone changed abruptly and he said slowly, we haven't reached that step yet. Before we die, we still have to leave something for this world. What do you want to leave behind? Cat, you've missed an important point. At this stage, they won't dare kill us. This is the main point, the Fox Emperor said faintly, if so, why don't we go and blow up a few mountains? We won't be able to escape death. This is fated, but before we die, isn't it a great joy to make them unhappy? With our actions, the flooding of the Fox Emperor city will come even later. Why not? Even if this life of ours is sacrificed, so what? Good idea, good idea. The cat ancestor was exhilarated at once and said, should we tell third brother? The Fox Emperor snorted, and said, Cat, we are demons after all. We still have to face these matters ourselves. Third brother is willing to lend a helping hand, and that is his spirit of brotherhood. It is a favor. Are you going to keep hiding behind third brother's back? We're also strong cultivators who can shake the world. Why don't you even have this little bit of backbone? The cat ancestor flushed red and said angrily, what nonsense are you talking about? Let's go. You dare to go? Am I not as good as you? Let's go. The Fox Emperor smiled faintly and said, once we go, we might not be able to return. Cat, be prepared. The cat ancestor guffawed. You and I are brothers, we'll go through life and death together, hand in hand. We can't really ally with third brother's human race after all. If we die, so be it. It's just that I'm a little sorry to third brother. We've entrusted everything to him, but we didn't do anything ourselves. I'm sorry, then I'm sorry. You and I are demons after all. Since we're disheartened, we have to do things that make us disheartened. The arrangements are almost done these few days. Even if the realm of demons is annihilated, even if the continent sinks, with OL third here, our bloodline won't end. The Fox Emperor looked towards the direction where Yun Yang was cultivating in seclusion. Third brother, I'm sorry. Let's go. We chose the time ourselves, what are we waiting for? The cat ancestor urged. The two emperors threw their heads back and laughed. They stood up and left without notifying anyone. Like two clouds, they floated away from the top of the city wall. Above their heads was the blue sky, and their feet were the blue sea. They leisurely left, not hiding their tracks at all. It was like a pair of brothers who had agreed to go on a spring outing. At this time, Yun Yang's injuries had finally healed. Just as he stepped out of the secret recuperation chamber, his body was still a little weak and his feet felt weak. Ji Lingxi and Shengguan Lingxiu took out a huge pile of food for Yun Yang to nourish his body. After stuffing himself with food, Yun Yang made his way to the palace's main hall. Of course, he wanted to take a look after his meal. How was the situation now? Going over to take a look, he saw the Fox Empress, the Cat Queen, and a few others standing in the palace's courtyard, looking up at the white clouds in the sky as if they had a lot on their minds. What's wrong? Where are big brother and second brother? Yun Yang asked with a smile, not in the palace. They. The Fox Empress was about to cry, but she stopped herself from speaking. Yun Yang's expression turned grim. Where did they go? Chapter 1474. Above the vast sea, a super battle was currently underway. As far as the eye could see, the mountains that were originally blocking the water channel had already collapsed. Torrential water poured out from the gap that had suddenly appeared, and the water channel was instantly thrown into chaos. The dozen or so Fey race sages that were guarding the area, under the lead of a Phoenix race sage, launched a frenzied attack on the trapped Fox Emperor and Cat Ancestor. The two emperors who were besieged were already covered in wounds, but they were still shouting and fighting fiercely, laughing non-stop. Emperor Peng, Emperor Eagle, and the other Fey race sovereigns had already arrived. They were watching the intense battle from the sky with conflicted and unwilling expressions. Their eyes were filled with unconcealable ruthlessness and eagerness, as if they were prepared to join the battle at any moment. However, the Phoenix Sovereign was watching coldly from the side. If they attacked, the Phoenix Sovereign would also intervene. Further away, there were hundreds of thousands of Fey race and Sea race experts on standby. However, although these experts said they were on standby, they were actually just watching quietly from the periphery. They completely ignored the 3 mountains that had been destroyed by the Fox Emperor and Cat Ancestor. They allowed the torrential seawater to flow out continuously. There were even some Sea race experts who wanted to move the mountains to repair them, but they were stopped by Emperor Peng and Eagle Sovereign. This is my brother's final wish. We can't stop their determination to die, but if they want the seawater to flow from here until after they die, we have to maintain this gap until then. For the benefit of the entire Fey race, for our personal standpoint, we can't save them. We are already destined to feel guilty for the rest of our lives. If we can't even satisfy this small wish, how can we have the face to continue living in this world? Countless Sea race members, including the Sea Emperor, could only sigh helplessly at this situation. Even though they understood the current situation, they could not bear to watch the torrential seawater flow into the distance. Brother Fox. The Phoenix Sovereign's voice sounded. We are of the same origin and stand on the same side. Why must you insist on this path of no return? As long as you agree, I'm willing to use my reputation and honor as a guarantee that there will be a day when you will be revived. I only want 20,000 years of slumber as the price. Only when you survive can we talk about recreating the race. Exchanging your 20,000 years for the demon tribe to rule the entire black-yellow continent and achieve long-term peace and stability, it's a good deal, isn't it? This is what you should do as a member of the demon tribe, isn't it? The Fox Monarch spat out another mouthful of fresh blood. His expression became even more mournful as he said fiercely, Phoenix Monarch, I'm happy to see the demon clan gaining power and ruling over the bound of universe. I won't have any objections. However, the outcome of this future is to sacrifice billions of my people. Even if the demon clan rules over the bound of universe, my Fox clan has already been annihilated. If it were you, what would you choose? If you were me, what would you do? If you say that I'll fulfill your wish, I'll agree to your request. The Phoenix Emperor said helplessly, if I were you, I wouldn't give up on my people either. But the situation is different now. You and the cat betrayed the demon race first, and you've even ruined the demon race's plans time and again. I can only promise you a day to rise again. Just as you said, demons share the same heart, and their hearts share the same logic. The world annihilation strategy is destined to require souls and fresh blood. Between sacrificing your people and sacrificing my people, we both know what to choose. With the name of rebellion on your heads, if you don't pay a price, how can you convince the hearts of all the demons in the world? How can you rise again in the future? The Fox Monarch laughed out loud. What a good demons share the same heart, and their hearts share the same logic. Since our standpoints are clear, there's no need to say so much. Everyone knows that we haven't done anything wrong. At the end of the day, there are demons that need to be sacrificed, but you're not willing to sacrifice yourselves, so we'll just let others sacrifice themselves. And this price, this sacrifice, will directly lead to the annihilation of the entire race. Phoenix Monarch, don't you think your words are very feeble and laughable? Rebel? Who's a rebel? How did we become rebels? Phoenix Monarch, do you need to speak to us in such a dignified tone now? As Cat Ancestor fought, blood splattered everywhere as he laughed maniacally. You make it sound so good that you need to convince the hearts of all the demons in the world. Phoenix Monarch, we've been brothers for tens of thousands of years. When you say this, have you ever asked your own heart? Who among the demons now dares to be unconvinced by you and that be **Star Dragon Monarch? Right and wrong indeed aren't important. History has always been written by the victors. But I still want to hear one more thing. What have we cultivated for the past tens of thousands of years? Could it be that we want to become emperors of our race and reach the sage rank, and then be taken away by you with a dignified reason to carry out the world annihilation strategy? How ridiculous! How laughable! If you want to kill us, just kill us. Why are you pretending? Don't sully the character of us brothers. Come on, come on. Emperor Rock and the other emperors had dim expressions, and their gazes were abnormally complicated. The Fox Monarch and Cat Emperor's words had clearly hit the nail on the head. They wanted to save the two emperors. Of course, they wanted to save them. All they had to do was take action, but what would happen after that? The fundamental contradiction still existed. If they didn't sacrifice the people of the fox race, they would have to sacrifice other races. Who would be willing to do that? The Eagle Monarch had a bad temper. He couldn't help but roar angrily. I can't listen to this anymore. Phoenix Monarch, do you know what you are saying? For the sake of accomplishing the great plan, you are really willing to sacrifice anything. Reputation and honor? Pooey. Don't you know how much you have left? The hearts of all the demons in the world? Do you really treat the other demons as fools? It's obvious that the demons have wronged them and let them down. Why are you still lying to a dying demon? The Phoenix Monarch's face was livid. On both sides. The faces of the demon clan experts that were besieging him also revealed obvious indignation. The two emperors and two high-level sages have already been forced to such a state by you. What else do you want? The battle continued, and the sounds of battle resounded through the world. The two emperors had already begun to fight with their lives on the line. They used their race's innate abilities and extreme combat techniques. Even though the surrounding demon sages had indestructible bodies, they were still heavily injured. All of them bled from their 7 orifices and were riddled with wounds. The Fox Monarch and Cat Ancestor suddenly roared at the same time. Brothers, this is the end of our lives. Help us this once. In the distance, the Rock Emperor, Eagle Emperor, Crane Emperor, Tiger Emperor, Leopard Emperor, and Bear Emperor all straightened their bodies at the same time and looked over with burning gazes. With a loud rumble, a huge snow-white fox suddenly appeared in the sky. This fox, which was over several thousand feet tall, flew around in the sky. Its 9 long tails had already covered the entire sky, and it looked furry everywhere. The Phoenix Monarch's expression changed when he saw this. He shouted, "Retreat! Retreat quickly!" Unfortunately, it was already too late. The Cat Ancestor laughed maniacally, and his body also grew to several thousand feet in an instant. At the next moment, another 8 huge cats that were the same size as the Cat Ancestor appeared in the sky. A total of 9 huge cats floated in the sky, forming a huge circle. At this moment, the 9 cats worked together and surrounded all the participating demon race sages. The strength that each huge cat displayed was extremely powerful. Be it the outsiders or the people involved, no one could tell which one was the Cat Ancestor's true body. And this was the Cat Ancestor's 9 lives demon cat's natural mystique. The moment the Cat Ancestor unleashed his full strength, with his body as the center, he instantly formed 9 clones. These 9 clones each had the full strength of the Cat Ancestor at his peak. In other words, the Cat Ancestor's strength instantly increased by 9 times. The 9 huge Cat Ancestor in the sky enveloped all the participating demon race sages. Immediately after, the 9-tailed fox, who was also in the sky, let out a fierce roar. A shimmering brilliance spread out rapidly in the sky. Everywhere it passed, the demon race sages swayed in the sky as if they were drunk. They swayed left and right, unable to control themselves. In the next moment, the skin, flesh, tendons, and bones of those demon race sages began to rapidly disintegrate. Their bodies melted like ice and snow, turning into skeletons in the sky. Soul-eroding bone. The Fox Monarch's natural mystique was an ultimate move. Using his lifetime's cultivation and soul as a guide, it formed the most extreme battle result. All the demon race sages within the range of the attack had their bodies crippled. They would never have any hope of recovering for the rest of their lives. Yes, it was the crippling of their bodies. It was not completely destroyed, because even if it was destroyed, it could still be reconstructed. Those who were struck by this soul-eroding bone might have their skeletons preserved, but it was impossible for them to regenerate their flesh and blood. They could only continue living as skeletons. Sages were undying and indestructible, but if they were to continue living as skeletons, the rest of their lives, were really not optimistic at all. After the shimmering brilliance attacked the demon race sages who were surrounded by the cat ancestor, it still contained an enchanting aura that continued to spread outwards. The strong winds in the sky were clearly howling, but they could not disperse it at all. The Wind Emperor, who was about to charge out, suddenly stopped in his tracks. With a loud roar, the nirvanic heavenly flames scattered out, burning the shimmering brilliance. Then, he moved and ran forward. However, the Rock Emperor, Eagle Emperor, and the other emperors all had tears streaming down their faces. They stood in front of the Phoenix Emperor and said with cold expressions, "Brother, leave today. Let them reap some benefits. Brother Phoenix, give me some face." The Phoenix Emperor was so angry that he almost vomited blood. Give me some face? Reap some benefits? If he gave them some face, it would mean that more than 20 sage experts, the core strength of the demon race, would all be destroyed here. How could the Fox Emperor and the Cat Ancestor's life be so easy to deal with? He gritted his teeth and looked up. He saw the Eagle Emperor, Rock Emperor, Crane Emperor, and Eagle Emperor all standing in front of him with resolute expressions and resolute gazes. Their meaning was very clear. If you move again, we'll attack. A little further away, the Tiger Emperor, Panther Emperor, and Bear Emperor had already revealed their true forms and were glaring at him. The Tiger Emperor's dark face was full of tears. The hatred in his eyes could no longer be concealed. It was too obvious. These 7 fellows were already prepared. As long as he dared to interfere, they would attack without any regard for anything else. This was because before the Fox Emperor and the Cat Ancestor attacked, they had already requested for their help. Help the 2 of us this once at the end of your life. They didn't refuse. They couldn't refuse. Since they didn't refuse, it meant that they agreed. As emperors, how can there not be a few who accompany us in death when we set off at the end of our journey? We'll take as many as we can with us. If anyone dares to stop us from making such a small request, they will be our lifelong enemies. 4 pairs of eyes were in front, and 3 pairs were behind. They glared fiercely at the Phoenix Emperor. The Phoenix Emperor let out a long sigh, feeling powerless all over his body. You will regret it. You will definitely regret it. The Phoenix Emperor closed his eyes. Emperor Rock and the others sneered. He, regret? Perhaps the Fox Emperor and the Cat Ancestor will be our tomorrow. However, even if we die because of this in the future and our species is wiped out, we will never regret it. The 7 emperors straightened their bodies and puffed out their chests. They stood in a row solemnly and shouted in unison, "Brother, rest in peace. We will be brothers again in our next life." Loud laughter sounded in the sky. It was the voices of the Fox Emperor and the Cat Ancestor. The 2 emperors were at the end of their lives, but they were laughing happily. They didn't seem dispirited at all. Thank you. The 9 Lives Cat had already begun to attack. He launched his final, most extreme attack. Incomparably ferocious attacks exploded, the 9 bodies simultaneously emitted dazzling rays of light. Immediately after, bolts of lightning fell from the 9 heavens. Each bolt of lightning was mixed with a dazzling purple light, and each bolt was as thick as a water bucket, densely packed as they fell from the sky. The bolts of lightning struck the demon sages who were attacking the 2 of them. The skeletons that had been crippled by the Fox Emperor's secret move trembled in the lightning and dissipated inch by inch. The souls of many demon sages emerged from the lightning and shouted with all their might, "Your Majesty, Fox Emperor! Your Majesty, Cat Emperor, please show mercy." However, the Fox Emperor and the Cat Ancestor's expressions didn't change at all. This was their final method of risking their lives. They only wanted to kill the enemy as soon as possible. How could they show mercy? Show mercy? Just now, when dozens of you surrounded the two of us, did you show mercy at all? Do not do unto others what you do not want done to yourself. It was the same today. So, all of you, go and die. The lightning continued to fall, and the skeletons were destroyed and dissipated in the lightning. The souls of the sages twisted in the lightning and finally dissipated, turning into a wisp of pure yuan qi in the world. Who said that sages were immortal? That was only because there were no experts of the same level or even a level higher who could use a suicidal attack. The Fox Emperor and the Cat Ancestor, the two emperors, were displaying the ultimate battle power of the Black-Yellow realm. When the two of them used extreme moves at the same time, the power level was not as simple as 1 + 1 = 2. 28 demon sages were dead. There were also 7 high-level demon sages who had survived the attack of the lightning of death. However, they were still in the form of pure skeletons. They were isolated in the sky. It was indescribably strange and dejected. Feng Lingtian said, "I've been so busy these few days, running back and forth between the hospital and home 7 or 8 times a day." Chapter 1475. The Fox Emperor and the Cat Ancestor had fallen just like that. Knowing that the strategy of annihilation had been put into action, the two emperors had lost all hope for the future. They did not even want to fight anymore. They did not want to take another look at this world. They had so many brothers, but they had not received any news at all. Even someone as intelligent as the Fox Emperor was disheartened. His only move was to further cooperate with Yun Yang, asking him to take care of his descendants so that his bloodline would continue. However, no matter what, he still could not stand on the side of the human race. Even if he were to die in battle, he could only die in the demon race's civil war. He could not die in the war between the demon race and the human race. Dying in battle then would go against the stance he had always stood for. Since this was his fate, he could only let Yun Yang down. Therefore, they made use of the time when Yun Yang was heavily injured to arrange everything. Then, the two emperors left the Fox Emperor city together, coming all the way here to fight to the death. "We're sorry, OL, Third. We've entrusted everything to you, agreed to cooperate, but the two of us have to be deserters. To repay you, the only thing we can do is to take away as many demons as we can in this final battle. For you, we can relieve some of the pressure." Far away, the wind and thunder rumbled. A white line rushed over like a meteor. A loud roar could be heard, "Big brother, second brother, don't." The two sovereigns, Fox Emperor and Cat Ancestor, suddenly had a hint of redness on their pale faces, and they even had a sincere smile on their faces. OL, Third is here. We won't be alone in this life after all. The Fox Emperor coughed and laughed, his huge body slowly dissipating in the air. The Cat Ancestor chuckled as well. First, the 8 silhouettes disintegrated and returned to one body. Then, this one began to dissipate as well. Only the laughter was still echoing in the air, making the world less silent. Soon, only a small white fox and a small white cat were left in the air, falling weakly to the dust. Those were the original bodies of the Fox Emperor and the Cat Ancestor. The extreme act just now had achieved a fruitful result, but it had also drained their lives and souls, dispersing with the wind. All it had to do was wait for the moment it fell to the ground. Then, its tiny body would turn into dust and completely disappear from the world, just like the sky. The wind and thunder surged. Yun-yang, who tore the space apart in a frenzy, rushed out at top speed. As his body spun, he managed to catch the Fox Emperor and the Cat Ancestor the instant they fell to the ground. In his arms, there was only a small ball left. Just as Yun-yang thought that he was lucky, thinking that he was not late, he realized in shock that the two emperors were no longer breathing. Only the residual warmth was left in his body. There was no sign of life at all. Yun-yang's eyes reddened at once. He suddenly raised his head and said through gritted teeth, "Phoenix Emperor." The Phoenix Emperor raised his head and looked at him calmly. The Falcon Emperor and the other 7 demon sovereigns were also looking at Yun-yang with a complicated gaze. Looking at the 2 lifeless bodies in his arms, Yi Zichen could not help but sigh. That was my brother. The eyes of the 7 sovereigns were red. It was as if they could see through time and space, seeing the demon realm's myriad demon plains with lush greenery. There were a few little fellows, playing happily. The little eagle was flying, chirping with its tender yellow beak. The little crane was flapping its wings. The little tiger shook its head and pushed a kitten into a somersault. There was also a little fox hiding under the wings of the largest bird, the little rock, so that the others could not find it. A little leopard was jumping, hopping and hopping, wanting to use its mouth to bite the little crane that had just learned how to fly in the air. On a small tree that was slightly higher, a little phoenix was standing proudly, looking at its little friends with disdain. "Brother," the Rock Emperor murmured, tears suddenly falling like rain. A deep sadness flashed across the Phoenix Emperor's eyes. He then stared at Yun-yang and suddenly took a step forward, his voice extremely suppressed. "You want to fight me? Avenge them?" Yun-yang sneered. "Fight you? Of course. But it can't be today." He hugged the Fox Emperor and Cat Ancestor's bodies and stood quietly. He said quietly, "I have to go back and bury them first." "Phoenix Emperor, are you going to stop me?" The Phoenix Emperor's body suddenly trembled. The Rock Emperor and the others turned their heads abruptly and glared at him. The Phoenix Emperor swallowed and said in a hurried voice, "I want to go with you." Yun-yang mocked, "Go with you? What for? To confirm their fate? There's no need. These are my brothers, and they're no longer your brothers. If you go, the dead will only feel uneasy. They will die with hatred." A hint of sadness flashed in the eyes of the Rock Emperor and the others. Yun-yang mocked, "If your majesty is worried that the 2 of them are faking their deaths and will come to cause trouble for you in the future, you can come and check if they're really dead. I won't stop you." The Phoenix Emperor waved his hand in discomfort. "Leave." The other sovereigns also looked dejected. With their cultivation base, how could they not tell if they were dead or alive? The Fox Emperor and Cat Ancestor, even their souls were gone. Yun-yang smirked coldly, forcefully suppressing his urge to fight with all his might. He said coldly, "Phoenix Empress, you and I will fight one day. That day won't be too far away." He turned and flew out lightly, neither too fast nor too slow. Countless experts of the demon race watched behind him, but not a single one of them moved. The Rock Emperor and the others took a step forward, as if they wanted to say something, but they hesitated. They just watched Yun-yang's silhouette getting further and further away. They stood there in a daze, like wooden statues. Yun-yang sped all the way to Fox Emperor City. At the same time, he poured the chi of vitality into the 2 tiny bodies left behind by the Fox Emperor and Cat Ancestor like it was free. He knew that the chances were slim, but he still tried his best, hoping that he could bring the dead back to life and rejuvenate the 2 emperors. Judging by the chi of vitality that he had expended along the way, those like Dongfang Haoran who knew better would definitely beat Yun-yang up. This was 2F** King extravagant. Using such a precious thing to save the demons? It was fine if UF** King used it, but King used so much of it. Aren't you asking for a beating? Even if this thing is yours, you can't use it like this. It's really, King ridiculous. However, even when Yunyang tried to save the white cat and fox regardless of the cost and exhaustion, the two bodies remained still, without any reaction at all. Mystical Qi. There was no reaction. He gathered his demonic Qi and poured it in. There was still no reaction. He poured the Qi of vitality and the power of vitality into them. There was still no reaction. Yunyang, who was helpless, placed his hopes on Emmy, but he could not help sighing when he saw Emmy's dispirited look. Emmy had expended a lot of energy during this period of time, and its origin energy was also greatly depleted. Yunyang had been injured twice before this. The first time was still fine, as it was only replenished by the Qi of vitality, but the second time, Yunyang had to endure the annihilation of hundreds of millions of different demonic powers. If Emmy had not expended a considerable amount of its origin energy, Yunyang would never have been able to recover in such a short period of time. Yunyang was afraid that Emmy would damage its foundation, so he had planned to not use it for the time being. However, it seemed that he had to use Emmy, the great Buddha, to save the two emperors. Emmy. Yaya. Emmy dragged its words, its reluctance evident in its words. These are my two elder brothers, give me some of the Qi of origin. Yaya. Emmy's tender voice actually made one's heart ache to hear it. I really can't. I can't anymore, these two are very important to me. I'll think of ways to nourish you in the future. Don't you trust me, your master? Yunyang used both the carrot and the stick, even using the word master that he had not used for a long time. Emmy, who was under someone else's roof, had no choice but to hand over 2 wisps of Qi of origin. At that moment it was so heartbroken that it almost cried. It had suffered a huge loss today. The effect of the infusion of Qi of origin was immediate. The Fox Emperor and the Cat Ancestor regained their breaths and their hearts started beating again. Their vitality was reignited and they returned to the underworld. However, after Yunyang's careful inspection, he still heaved a long sigh. They're back, but their origin is destroyed and their primordial spirits are gone. These 2 peak-level demonic emperors, who had once dominated the world, did not even have a hint of demonic Qi left in them, let alone their cultivation base. Perhaps, it could be said that they were just 2 ordinary little foxes and kittens. Other than their breaths, there was no memory or foundation. Even their spirituality was gone. In other words, they were not even demonic beasts anymore. Although the bloodline of the 9-tailed fox and the 9-life cat remained in their bodies, they were already dead and gone. It was almost impossible to reactivate the bloodline. At least, from Yunyang's point of view, there was nothing he could do. This meant that although the 2 emperors were still alive, they could only live as ordinary beasts from now on. This state was even worse than Yunyang's Tianxian comrade, the Niello bear. Back then, the Niello bear had been decapitated and his soul scattered. Even his mystical core had been dug out. He could not have been more dead, but his mystical core was intact. Yunyang had sealed the mystical core with Emmy's spiritual energy of vitality and gathered its soul to help it reincarnate. It would only take time for it to recover. When Yunyang had returned to Tianxian and met the Niello bear and the Moor python again, he was glad to see the recovery of his old beasts. However, the 2 sovereigns' current state was very different from the Niello bears. After unleashing their ultimate technique, they had exhausted themselves to the point where their spirits were drained and their mystical cores were gone. Even their natal spirits were almost depleted. If it were not for Emmy's origin energy, the tiny bit of their natal spirits would have dissipated a long time ago. It was impossible for them to recover from such a state, no matter who it was. Furthermore, the current situation in the demonic realm could not possibly give the 2 emperors a chance to recuperate, I really don't know if I've done the right thing or the wrong thing to save you two with all my might." Yunyang looked at the two little things in his arms who were trembling instinctively and murmured, "Why are you so silly? We're sworn brothers. Even if we're from different races, we've treated each other with sincerity. Although we've only known each other for a short while, we've already gone through life and death together. We really treat each other like brothers. Can't I understand your feelings? Would I force you two to fight the Phoenix Empress? Why do you have to take this step? Taking advantage of the time when I'm healing myself, you two ran out so impatiently to find them and fight to the death. Are you afraid that I'll stop you? You're already old monsters who've lived for so many years, yet you still have to do such a thing." Yunyang heaved a long sigh. "Now that you've become like this, I've fulfilled your original intentions. What else do you want me to do?" Yunyang could only feel his heart being weighed down like a lead weight. Rushing all the way back to Fox Emperor City, Yunyang could not help feeling a sense of melancholy when he saw the flood receding and the words Fox Emperor City reappearing on top of the city wall. The Fox Emperor City was still there, but its owner, the Fox Emperor, was no more. At this time, the Fox Empress was standing on top of the city wall to welcome him with her son. Seeing Yunyang return alone, those present, such as the Fox Empress and Cat Concubine, wore mournful expressions. Although she could vaguely guess that the bad news was coming, the Fox Empress suppressed the grief in her and said in a mournful voice, "This isn't the place to talk. Let's go back to the palace first." There were only a few people present in the secret chamber of the Fox Emperor's palace. This included the Fox Empress, the two beginner saints of the Fox clan, the two cat concubines, and the Fox Crown Prince, the nine-tailed jade. Other than them, there was Yunyang, Ji Lingxi, and Shengguan Lingxiu. Everyone's expression was grim. His Majesty, the Fox Empress' voice trembled as she asked the question that had been hanging in her mind. Yunyang sighed softly and retrieved the two little fellows from his deific consciousness. Thanks to Emmy's power of origin, the little fox and cat had recovered considerably and were now sleeping comfortably. This, the Fox Empress and Cat Concubine's eyes widened in disbelief. Yunyang sighed. "This is what happened to the two of them. You should be able to recognize them. Both of them, self-destructed their souls and deific consciousness, pushed their cultivation base to the limit, burned their demon cores, and even depleted their origin in that battle. I've saved them, but I've only managed to keep them alive after exhausting all my means." As for the rest, Yunyang sighed silently and did not speak further. "We understand. We're already very content that they're still alive." Tears streamed down the Fox Empress' cheeks as she went forward to hug the Fox Emperor's tiny body lovingly, as if she was hugging the most important treasure in her life. Then, she said pitifully, "Third brother, don't worry. We'll wait for him, for the day when he's all-powerful again." Her face was full of tears, but her eyes were full of tenderness. Her voice was low but firm. "He'll recover." On the other side, the two cat concubines hugged the cat ancestor in their arms as well, their faces filled with determination. "We'll wait for him. No matter how long it takes, we'll wait." Yunyang stared at them blankly. There was something that he could not bear to tell them. The two emperors' souls were gone, their deific consciousness destroyed as well. Only their lives remained. It was like they had to start all over again. Even if you wait for them to regain their consciousness, it's a pity that when the time comes, they still won't remember you. Their souls and all their memories had completely dissipated, turning into nothingness. Even if Yunyang could not bear to say it, how could the Fox Empress and Cat Concubine, who were also experts in cultivation, not know about it? The Fox Empress smiled faintly. "Back then, they married us because they liked us. They can fall in love with us in the future. It's just a new beginning. We're very confident that as long as they're still alive, nothing is impossible." Feng Lingtian said. Many brothers came to ask what happened, and the explanation was that there was a car accident at my cousin's house, 1 dead and 3 injured. It's very serious, so I've been really busy these few days. Chapter 1476. The Fox Empress stood up and said softly, "Pass the decree." Both saints of the Fox clan stood up at the same time and bowed to receive the order. The Fox clan's emperor, Nine-Tailed White, has passed away today. A nation can't be without a ruler, a clan can't be without an emperor. The Crown Prince, the Nine-Tailed White, is diligent and intelligent. He can inherit the position of the Fox Sovereign and be called the Jade Emperor. Yes, Your Majesty. Ascend the throne today. Yes. The Fox Empress bowed to Yunyang. Please lend us a hand and preside over the situation, uncle. Yunyang was stunned. Me? I'm a human. If I were to step in, the Fox clan might not be able to escape the demon race's censure. The Fox Empress smiled sadly. The demon race wanted to annihilate the Fox clan first. The Fox clan can only wait for death to come. Is that the only way to be loyal to the demon race? I'm not as foolish as Nine-Tailed White. Only uncle, only the human race can protect our bloodline now. There's no need to say more. Uncle is the sworn brother of the Fox Emperor and the Cat Ancestor. You are only senior from today onwards. Nine-Tailed White has dominated the demon race all his life. It's said that he has countless sworn brothers, all of them loyal to each other. Until now, only uncle is still by his side. Please lend us a hand and preside over the situation, uncle. The Fox Empress and the Cat Empress bowed together and repeated what they had said earlier. All right. Yunyang agreed solemnly. You ascends the throne today. Third brother, if the Fox clan can get through this, there's nothing to say. However, if we can't. The Fox Empress smiled sadly. Sister-in-law. I don't want to die yet. I want to bring him to the human race and be your disciple. The Cat Ancestor said, the same goes for us. Please agree to it, uncle. I thought, to accompany him in a grand battle this time, to accompany him with this life of mine, so that we wouldn't have wasted our life together. I didn't expect him to stay, such a tiny hope. God has been kind to me. Since he's still here, if we go, with his current state, I'm afraid, the Fox Empress said softly, if uncle has any concerns, we're willing to destroy our own cultivation base and cultivate with him. Yunyang replied, Sister-in-law, what are you talking about? No matter what happens in this battle, I guarantee that you will be safe and sound for the rest of your lives. After the war, we'll return to the bound of universe together and stay in the palace of 9 supremes. We'll be safe and happy, waiting for the day both of you return. All right, thank you for your kindness, uncle. On the second day, the grand funeral of Fox Emperor and Cat Ancestor was held in Fox Emperor City. Originally, the funeral of an emperor was never a simple matter. To say that it was extravagant was a kind of blasphemy. But now that the Fox clan was in a precarious situation, they really couldn't care about such extravagance. Even the black mourning of the entire Fox Emperor City was done spontaneously by the people of the Fox clan. Cries of pain could be heard from every corner of the city, shaking the heavens and earth. High up in the sky a little further away, many huge figures appeared as He Cheng of the Fox Emperor City cried bitterly, Eagle Emperor, Rock Emperor, Tiger Emperor, Leopard Emperor, Crane Emperor, Eagle Emperor, Wolf Emperor, even the Dragon Monarch and the Phoenix Monarch, the 2 highest decision-makers of the demon race, were standing there silently. They looked at the white mourning of the city and listened to the deafening cries. These demon sovereigns all had different expressions and attitudes. Rock Emperor and the others were trembling, their eyes red as they stared at Fox Emperor City. They wished they could go there personally and send their 2 brothers off for the last time. On the other side, two statues stood up in the city. They were the statues of the Fox Emperor and Cat Ancestor. Golden light flashed, and when one looked over, it was two golden coffins that rose with the morning cries in the city. Thick, dark clouds surged over from all directions, shrouding the entire sky above Fox Emperor City. At that moment, a majestic sword light soared into the sky, breaking through the thick layers of clouds. It was Yun Yang, soaring through the sky and sweeping away the wind and clouds. He shouted sternly, "Brothers, have a safe journey." Above the thick layers of clouds, a thunderclap shook the heavens. Countless electric currents surged and crisscrossed. In an instant, thunder and lightning flashed, and wind and rain intertwined. Yun Yang stood in midair, his entire body emitting a golden radiance. He pointed the sword in his hand towards the western sky. "My brother has perished, and I shall pave the way for him with this sword." This was the highest form of etiquette of the demon race. It was also the highest form of camaraderie between demon brothers. If they were not close enough, they would not have the right to use it. To obtain the right to guide the way, one had to either be appointed by the deceased when they were alive, or have the approval of the deceased's family, or even the entire clan. Rock Emperor, Eagle Emperor, and the others looked enviously at Yun Yang, who was hovering in the air with his sword. Their eyes were filled with sadness. The final send-off of the demon race's sovereigns was actually done by a human. How pitiful was that? However, they were speechless. They had long lost the right to send him off. They did not even have the right to speak. The funeral procession passed through the streets of Fox Emperor City, heading towards the royal mausoleum of the Fox clan behind the city. At that moment, a beam of white light soared into the sky. The Fox Empress, who was dressed in mourning clothes, tore through space and arrived in front of the Eagle Emperor and the others. The sovereigns looked uneasy at the same time as they bowed at the same time. Sister-in-law, my condolences." The Fox Empress' cold gaze swept across the sovereigns present. Following that, she said coldly, "It's rare for sovereigns to be so thoughtful to come and watch my deceased husband's funeral. I thank you on behalf of my deceased husband. I'm truly honored and overwhelmed by the favor. Greetings, everyone." Emperor Rock said uncomfortably, "Sister-in-law, I dare not." The Fox Empress immediately stopped him. "How can I be worthy of being addressed as such by Emperor Rock? Please don't address me so intimately. If the people of the Fox clan misunderstand that I'm colluding with my deceased husband's murderer, I'll be wronged. Sovereigns, please be merciful with your words. Don't push me too far." Emperor Rock's face turned red, and he was momentarily at a loss for words. He did not know what to say. He stammered a few times and shut his mouth. "All of you shouldn't be here today. I especially don't wish for all of you to be an eyesore here. I believe that even if my deceased husband's spirit sees all of you here, he will only feel uncomfortable." The Fox Empress said lightly, "However, I know that my strength is lacking. I can't let all of you leave and let my deceased husband rest in peace. This is naturally my incompetence. It has nothing to do with all of you. Since all of you are here, you should have come with a purpose. As the host, I have a request. I hope that all of you can agree." With that said, she bowed deeply and refused to stand up straight for a long time. The Phoenix Emperor coughed and said, "This. Sister-in-law, please stand up. If you have something to say, say it. As long as it's within our capabilities, we definitely won't decline." The Fox Empress remained bowed and said in a deep voice, "Your Majesty, could it be that there's something wrong with your ears? Or perhaps I didn't make myself clear enough? I don't dare and don't want to have anything to do with the sovereigns. I'm already too ashamed to meet my deceased husband in the afterlife. Your Majesty, do you really want to force me like this?" The Phoenix Emperor laughed bitterly and swallowed his anger. "Sister-in-law, if you have something to say, say it face to face. As long as it's within our capabilities, we definitely won't say a word. The Fox Empress said coldly, of course it's within your capabilities. Although I don't have much intelligence, I know that everyone's standpoints are different. Your determination to destroy my fox clan is clear. How can a mere request be appeased? I only ask that all of you, when Nine-Tailed White is buried later, all of you sovereigns must not call him brother or something like that. Please have a good journey and be brothers in your next life. Please. Nine-Tailed White, he's no longer your brother. I believe that even if his spirit is in heaven, he definitely doesn't wish for you to call him that anymore. Why does he feel so stifled? When he's dead, everything will be over. If he still needs to be sent off by your words of farewell, it's really not worth it. Please. The Fox Empress swept her gaze across all the sovereigns present in disdain. She snorted coldly again and turned to leave without waiting for any response from the sovereigns. The Rock Emperor, Eagle Emperor, and the others were ashamed. They lowered their heads deeply. The Tiger Emperor was on the verge of tears. He sniffled and mumbled, "That damned Phoenix Emperor. It's all that damned Phoenix Emperor's fault." His voice was not soft at all. Not to mention the fact that all the people present were sage-level experts with sharp ears and eyes, even the ordinary demons could hear his loud voice clearly. The Dragon Emperor and Phoenix Emperor's cold gazes followed the voice and looked over. The Tiger Emperor felt the cold gazes on him and became even more furious. He suddenly exploded and shouted, "What are you looking at? What's wrong? Am I not speaking the truth? Or are you trying to destroy my Tiger clan as well for offending your dignity?" All the sovereigns were immediately dumbfounded. The Dragon Emperor could not help but glare. He was not angry, but he was actually a little surprised. The Tiger Emperor said angrily, "What are you glaring at? You have no idea why our brothers of tens of thousands of years have ended up like this. Oh. If not for that bastard of a son of yours and your bastard father, would the demon clan have ended up like this? Would the friendship between brothers end up like this? Would foxes and cats end up like this?" The Dragon Emperor was momentarily speechless. "Now, our brothers are gradually dying. Those of us who are still alive can't even attend our brothers' funerals. We can't even call them brothers. We have to be speechless and speechless. I feel so aggrieved and uncomfortable. What are you glaring at me for? What right do you have to glare at me? The root of everything is because of your lecherous nature, your so-called dignity." As the Tiger Emperor spoke, he actually burst into tears. "My brother Fox is gone just like this. My brother Cat is gone just like this, is gone just like this." The Dragon Emperor took a deep breath and clenched his fists. This tiger really needed to be taught a lesson. However, just as he clenched his fists, a few figures suddenly appeared beside the Tiger Emperor. The Rock Emperor crossed his arms in front of his chest and stood proudly beside the Tiger Emperor. The Eagle Emperor followed him like a shadow. There was also the Silent Crane Emperor and the Eagle Emperor who rolled their eyes. The Leopard Emperor was slightly behind and walked over slowly. In an instant, more than 10 emperors gathered around the Fox Emperor. Pairs of cold eyes stared at the Dragon Emperor. The intentions of the emperors were obvious. "Do you dare to touch me?" The Dragon Emperor roared, "What are you doing? Are you trying to force me to abdicate and rebel?" The emperors panted heavily and stared at him with very strange gazes. They did not speak for a long time. "Look, look!" The Dragon Emperor flew into a rage. "Phoenix Emperor, look at this. What has this become? Are there any rules at all? Is this still the royal court of the demon race?" The Phoenix Emperor sighed and said, "Calm down, all of you are emperors of the demon race. Look at all of you." As soon as the Phoenix Emperor spoke, the hostile atmosphere instantly eased up considerably. The Tiger Emperor said resentfully, "We can't attend the funeral. We can't even roar to send our brother off. We are no longer qualified. We are inferior to a human. I feel aggrieved. I feel so aggrieved that I want to die. This is too aggrieving. I just want to vent on this guy. The Tiger Emperor choked with tears in his eyes. He was filled with sorrow. On the other side, the Demon Emperor's face darkened. This guy? Who are you talking about? He was about to fly into a rage. The Phoenix Emperor's face darkened. All of you, shut up. If you want to fight, fight after the funeral. The Phoenix Emperor's words made the final decision. All the emperors stopped talking. The funeral in the city was carried out in an orderly manner. Countless fox demons waited by the side of the road to send off their emperors, hoping that they would not be lonely in the end. All the martial emperors saw it clearly, they knew it very well. The two emperors who had dominated the demon race for many years, the two peerless experts who had countless friends and brothers when they were alive, only had one brother sending them off at this moment. A lonely brother. And a human at that. In the demon world, it was customary for brothers to send off experts at the end of their journey. When it came to the funeral, the more brothers there were to send them off, the more ostentatious and dignified they were. Now, the Fox Emperor and the Feline clan's final journey was so bleak. The Fox Emperor and the Feline ancestor were of noble status, the sovereigns of their respective races. Their subordinates could not send them off as brothers, and the brothers they had once acknowledged, could not even be present now. It was not only because the Fox Empress had asked them to do so, they did not have the face to be present as well. How could they be present? The so-called brothers were the ones who had plotted against them and forced them into a dead end. Some of them were the murderers who had besieged and killed them. As for the rest, they had watched them being besieged and killed in their final battle. They had watched them being besieged and killed without lifting a finger. How could they still have the face to go? They had arrived at the royal mausoleum of the foxes. Yunyang sang loudly, "Send off my brother, this life shall be eternal. Descend the coffin." On the other side, all the demon emperors, including the Dragon Emperor and the Phoenix Emperor, bowed deeply. "Send off my brother." The Tiger Emperor roared, but he only managed to utter the first half of the sentence before he stopped himself, tears streaming down his cheeks, choking on his words. "I don't even have the right to say this anymore. Now, the Fox Emperor City is the only force left of the Fox clan's core force. The elites outside have all been killed or captured. Other than that, there are only a handful of ordinary foxes who have moved to live in the mountains." After the funeral, it was the ascension ceremony of the Fox clan's successor. The nine-tailed jade would take over the throne. On the same night, the nine-tailed jade came to the hall to discuss clan matters under the Fox Empress' command. The Fox Empress then turned to Yunyang for a secret discussion. The Fox clan's combat power has 350,000 Saint Kings and above. There are 30,000 Royal Saints, 675 Supreme Saints, 13 Saint Lords, 4 Half-Saints, and 2 beginner-level Saints. The rest of the Fox clan's elites are all riled up, wanting to avenge the Fox Emperor. The elites of the Fox clan are not afraid of death. They do not hesitate to fight. The Fox Empress' eyes were bright as she said fiercely, "I swear that the Demon Emperor will pay the price." Chapter 1477. Yunyang stroked his chin, his brows furrowed, and he did not speak for a long time. If you only want to pay a price and don't care about death, these forces can cause considerable damage to the demon race. But Er's demon court in the future should have some strength left, right? Otherwise, how can we rise again? What's more, the ones outside are all demon race sages. If anyone below the Saint Lord realm were to go out, as long as they encounter a sage, they would be captured alive. It's fine if they die in battle, but if they're captured alive, they'll only become sacrifices for the strategy of annihilation. It won't be good. Yunyang chuckled bitterly. I know sister-in-law wants to avenge big brother, but you have to think about this. The Fox Empress frowned and said in deep thought, What do you mean, third brother? I mean to give up Fox Emperor City completely. Yunyang said seriously, evacuate all the people to the mountainous land on the side of the Bloody Soul Mountain. It's cold there and the place is a little cramped, it may not be enough for all the people to live in, but as long as I mediate, it's entirely possible to leave a place for the Fox clan to rest on this side of the Bloody Soul Mountain. However, we have to be careful when choosing the location, we can't be in front of the demon race's seawater attack, it's even dangerous on the side. I think that when it comes to that extreme, the seawater that's tens of thousands of feet high will overturn everything it passes by. Yunyang said, regarding this location, the location that Big Brother and Second Brother chose previously is not bad, but the area is too small. It can't accommodate these millions of people. The Fox Empress sighed. Her expression was somber. Yes, millions of people. The Fox clan, which used to have tens of billions of people, was now left with only a few gathered in Fox Emperor City. How could it not be sad? In fact, not only the Fox clan civilians from other areas, even the civilians who originally lived in Fox Emperor City had mostly died as long as they did not have a certain cultivation base. They were too weak and did not need to experience war. The weather during this period of time, coupled with the shockwaves from the battle between Saint Masters and the invasion of Aura from thousands of miles away, was enough to be fatal. Although the remaining people were all elites and not bad experts, they were not weak at all. However, this number was really pitiful. Moreover, there were less than 30 of them who could be of use in the upcoming battle. At least, from Yunyang's point of view, it was no more than that. That's fine too. The entire Fox clan will retreat from this battle. Later on, I will choose 300 experts from my clan to follow you and listen to your commands. The Fox Empress waved her hand to stop Yunyang from speaking and said, Don't refuse first. No one in the Fox clan can command these 300 disciples, be it me or you, In fact, 98 of them have already committed suicide. They're nine-tailed white's personal guards, even if you don't accept them, they will be like walking corpses for the rest of their lives. Ever since Nine-Tailed White left, the fate of his personal guards has been decided. They have all sworn a blood oath. Either they die to avenge the Emperor, or they die together with the Emperor. Dying in this battle is their only path. The Fox Queen said sadly, ever since something happened to them, they haven't eaten or drunk anything. They've been waiting for our decision. As for these guards, I only have one request. Please speak, Yunyang said solemnly. Please try to let them die in the battle with the Dragon Emperor or the Phoenix Emperor. At the very least, let them perish in the battle with the experts of these two clans. Let them die calmly and leave with some glory. Yunyang uttered word by word, I promise. The Fox Queen smiled faintly. They're guarding the rear. They've been waiting for you. Now, I'm officially entrusting them to you. I want to go back and check on you's condition. A son lives 100 years, but his mother worries 99. What a wise saying. Sister-in-law, please go ahead. The Fox Queen stood up and left. Throughout the entire process, the Fox Emperor's little fox form had been in the Fox Queen's embrace. Occasionally, it would struggle with its watery eyes, wanting to crawl onto the ground to play. The Fox Queen would pat it lightly and chide it, how dare you be so stubborn when you've already gotten yourself into this state? Stay put. Thus, the little fox stopped moving and curled up in the Fox Queen's embrace in an aggrieved manner. Walking to the door, the Fox Queen looked at the fox in her embrace and said helplessly, these two brothers have been domineering their entire lives. Perhaps they never dreamed that they'd be coaxed by their wives like they're their sons one day. It's their luck and fate indeed. Yunyang did not know what to say. He stood there in a daze, not moving for a long time. The Fox Queen smiled and left with the little fox. When she reached the door, she said, "Even his personal guards don't know." As she spoke, she patted the little fox in her embrace. "I understand," Yun-yang replied. The Fox Queen did not linger and left. He heaved a deep sigh. The next morning, the Fox clan's higher-ups announced that they were abandoning Fox Emperor City and moving the entire clan. The Fox Queen and Cat Concubine had even collectively expressed their intention to withdraw from this war. Following that, the Nine-Tailed Jade led the remaining top-notch experts of the Fox clan and ordered all of the Fox clan to officially abandon Fox Emperor City. After another tens of thousands of miles, they came to the side of the Crimson Soul Mountain and climbed the snow mountain that was more than 30,000 feet above the ground. The Fox Queen felt that this location was not stable, so she decided to climb higher, going all the way to 60,000 feet. This was already the highest survival limit that the Fox clan could bear. "Let's settle down here then." This place was about 22,000 miles away from the human forces stationed at the Blood Soul Mouth. The ultimate power of the demon race's world extermination stratagem was unknown, but the threat posed by the sea waves would never reach this place. The only thing we need to worry about now is the extent to which the apocalyptic strategy's subsequent actions will affect the land. The cat, Tunton, stood on the side, slightly puzzled. "Big sister, are we going to stay here forever? I keep feeling unsafe. The living space we can choose is extremely limited. By staying here, we can at least witness the final outcome of this war of the century on their behalf, no matter who wins or loses." The Fox Queen said faintly, to them, "The end of this war is the end. Once this war is over, no matter who wins or loses, we will leave immediately. We will go to the residence of 9 Supremes and stay out of worldly affairs, accompanying them as they slowly grow. Only then will we truly let go of everything." "Then, what about you, Isn't you going with us?" "You, is the emperor of the Fox clan. He has to support the legacy his father left behind. No matter what happens next, it's a responsibility he has to bear. If he's successful, it's my and his father's wish to see the Fox clan rise again. If he's not capable and perishes here, it's just that the younger generation has their own fortune. Whatever happens next will depend on his own luck. Our mission as parents has been accomplished. I only have one goal in life now, to take care of his father and wait for his return." The cat, Tunton, was confused but he nodded. "I understand, big sister. The situation is not clear yet, but I have something to say first." The Fox Queen said seriously, "My 2 sisters, Yun-yang has done us a great favor by taking us into the Palace of 9 Supremes, but this is also a great taboo for the human race. Therefore, after we go to the Palace of 9 Supremes, the so-called peaceful stay is really just that, we won't go out anymore. If trouble arises because of us, I'm afraid that even the Palace of 9 Supremes will be destroyed because of our identities." "I understand. Don't ask about worldly affairs, live a life of silence." The cat, Tunton, and the Fox Queen nodded solemnly. Looking at the innocent cat ancestor in their arms, the 2 sisters sighed lightly and sighed endlessly. "I've been trying to sort out their meridians for the past 2 days, but there's no effect. Their meridians seem to have completely solidified. There's still the seed of demonic power in them, but it's completely solidified. I don't know, I know. It's the same for the Fox Emperor." The Fox Queen sighed. "But I believe that as long as we put in enough patience and practice, the situation will get better." She murmured as if to comfort the cat and herself, "I heard that the Palace of 9 Supremes is the best place in the world. Maybe there'll be a turn for the better when we go there." In just a few days, the vast Fox Emperor city was empty, leaving only Yun-yang and 300 of the Fox Emperor's personal guards. In the Fox Emperor city, which used to be extremely noisy, even a light cough would cause a series of hollow echoes. The 300 fox warriors followed behind Yunyang and his companions quietly, not uttering a single word, like 300 disheartened spirits. The seawater outside the city did not show any signs of rising for now. It was unknown if it was the result of the Fox Emperor and Cat Ancestors' efforts or if it was the Eagle Emperor and the other demon sovereigns who had left it as a token of appreciation. Yunyang spoke to Ji Lingxi as his thoughts raced. Ji Lingxi hummed in agreement and flew away. You want Palace Lord Dongfang and the rest to come to the Fox Emperor city? Shengguan Lingxiu was genuinely puzzled by Yunyang's actions. Although the Fox Emperor city temporarily belonged to their side, it was still in the demon race's territory. Humans would obviously be at a disadvantage if they fought here. Why did Yunyang still want to recruit them? I want to make this place into a base camp, a base for the demon race. I've asked Lingxi to look for Palace Lord Dongfang. I've already made it clear that only a handful of experts are qualified to come, and only pinnacle experts are qualified to come. Yunyang said, although the Fox Emperor and Feline Ancestor have sacrificed their lives for this operation, the result is considerable. The water outside Fox Emperor City has receded 1,000 feet deep. According to the demon race's previous rate of increase and the speed of the water flow, it'll take about 20 days to make up for this loss. This period of time is a buffer for us, a chance for us to tamper with the situation and make our move. Now that the three of us have been exposed, it'll be even more difficult to destroy the opponent's water fortifications with a surprise attack. I think the Demon Emperor, Phoenix Emperor, Rock Emperor, Sea Emperor, and the rest, these pinnacle experts of the demon race are already gathered here, eyeing us covetously, waiting for us to walk right into their trap. If we really go over, we'll probably be held back after destroying 1 or 2 mountains. It won't be difficult for the remaining experts of the demon race to fill up the gaps in these mountains. Therefore, if we act rashly, it won't be effective at all. Instead, it'll put us in a passive and dangerous situation. The more feasible plan now is to have fresh troops come over. Then, we'll feign an attack and try our best to restrain the enemy's pinnacle experts. Then, we'll let Dongfang and Shimen wreak havoc and buy more time. And this will also be the last buffer we can fight for. This is the only time we can cause widespread destruction. It'll never happen again. Then, we must destroy more thoroughly this time. Yunyang's expression was grim. The next time we face the demon race, it'll be the time for the strategy of annihilation to be fully activated. Amidst the scheming, Dongfang Haoren and the rest of the group of 10 people tore through space and arrived without anyone noticing. Among them were 2 mid-level sages, 4 high-level sages, and 4 peak-level sages. In other words, there were 3 rulers and Python 9. The group settled down in the Fox Emperor city. The Fox Empress' large-scale relocation of the Fox clan this time had caused quite a commotion. The Phoenix Emperor and the rest were naturally aware of it, but they did not stop it from the beginning to the end. To them, the Fox Emperor was already dead. If they were to trouble the Fox Empress, not only would it be too unethical, it would also incite the Eagle Emperor, Tiger Emperor, and the other demon emperors to rebel. Taking 10,000 steps back, no one could afford to lose this face. Let's not talk about fighting. If they really met face to face, as long as the Fox Queen said a word, everyone would be ashamed to death. The Phoenix Emperor even suspected that if such a day were to come, it would not just be the Fox clan, but a full-blown civil war among the demon race. If the Rock Emperor, the Eagle Emperor, the Tiger Emperor, and the rest saw that the Fox Emperor, the Nine-Tailed White, had just died, and all of them went to bully the Fox Emperor's widow, wanting to annihilate her entire clan. What would the other sovereigns think? Who knew what would happen? It was better to leave as soon as possible. Out of sight, out of mind. After all, there were only so many of the Fox clan left, so it did not affect the overall situation. Therefore, during this period of time, the Fox Emperor city had become an empty zone for all parties to wrestle with. It was probably because the Sea clan and the demon race were very busy. They were busy almost all the time, so it was good to have less work to do. Countless sea dragons soared in the clouds, summoning the rain. Torrential rain fell madly every day. Countless demon saint experts patrolled the mountains along the coast, while the Sea clan's pinnacle experts swam not far from the coast. Obviously, they were guarding against Yun Yang's ambush. The demon race hated this human supreme cloud to the core. Just the mention of his name made them grit their teeth, wishing they could eat his flesh and sleep on his skin. Huge silhouettes leaped out from the surface of the sea from time to time. They were probably the Sea clan's experts patrolling. However, even under such circumstances, the Sea clan rarely noticed that the middle-level demons of the Sea clan were disappearing in batches. The sea was too vast, and the number of people in the sea was uncountable. It was the most common thing for the Sea clan for the big fish to eat the small fish, and for the big demons to eat the small ones. Hundreds of thousands or millions of such middle-level demons were nothing to them. No one would care at all. Moreover, those who disappeared were mostly small forces at the edge of the sea. They were the so-called rogue cultivators of the Sea clan, the forces of the remote lands. At the same time, many demons from the land had also disappeared from the forests, batches after batches. Some of them were in the know, but most of them had disappeared inexplicably. The strategy of annihilation was being carried out in a chaotic but orderly manner. The top-level demons were all stationed along the coastline, while the second-level experts spread their nets throughout the demon realm, capturing rogue cultivators and demons everywhere. Some of the demons in the tributaries were met with great misfortune. Basically, wherever they passed, not even a blade of grass was left, not even a trace of life was left. Few rogue cultivators and experts from the demon race outside the royal court were spared, and all of them met with misfortune. It was not difficult to see the benefits of having an organization and a backer here. It was directly linked to life and death, survival and destruction. Time passed, and another 20 days had passed in a blink of an eye. There was only 1 month and 5 days left until the strategy of annihilation officially began, as announced by the Phoenix Emperor. Chapter 1478. During this period of time, Yun Yang ventured out more frequently. He teamed up with Ji Lingxi and Shengguan Lingxiu to look for opportunities to destroy the mountains. With their combined abilities, they could still escape unscathed even if they were ambushed by the demonic race's experts. In spite of this, other than a lucky success that was quickly repaired, the rest of the mission had been fruitless. Out of every 10 missions, at least 9 of them had returned empty-handed. The further they went, the more closely they were watched. There were a few times when they were ambushed by the demonic race's experts, falling into perilous situations and narrowly escaping death. As a result, they did not manage to destroy the mountains even after a dozen consecutive attacks. It was more like they were there for the demonic race's experts to vent their frustrations. No matter where the 3 of them went, at the very least, they would encounter about 10 opponents. Then, after a few dozen breaths, they would gather a force of 40 to 50. Then, after another buffer, the other party would have more than 100 sages. Yun Yang, Shengguan Lingxiu, and Shengguan Lingxiu's frequent attacks, but all of them returned empty-handed. The demonic race's experts were delighted and delighted. I love to see you guys running for your lives, and I love to see you guys helpless against us. We know you want to destroy the mountains. The mountains are right here. Come, come, come if you can. The demonic race's higher-ups were all refreshed. Yes, the 3 of you are extraordinarily strong. Very impressive, very impressive. But, what can you do no matter how impressive you are? We can't beat you in a one-on-one fight, but we can come together and gang up on you. Other than sighing, there's nothing else you can do. Even if you have godly abilities, How can you break through the demonic race's iron wall of determination? Ha ha ha, there's no other way. As the seawater accumulated and was about to return to the scale before the Fox Emperor's destruction, the demonic race's experts were even more confident. Now that things had come to this, it was already extremely difficult to destroy the mountains. Seeing that the situation was getting worse, Yun Yang and the other two launched another 3 sneak attacks within the same day. It was obvious that they could not wait any longer, and their battle stance was unprecedentedly desperate. They had almost broken through all obstacles and almost destroyed the waterway. But even though they had risked their lives for so long, it was still futile. This result made the demon race powerhouses even more relieved. Even though the Phoenix Emperor had emphasized time and again that Yun Yang had always planned before taking action, and that he was cunning and full of tricks, he must be plotting something after making such a reckless move. However, they had repelled the mysterious yellow supreme cloud too many times, so their vigilance had been worn down bit by bit. Even if there was any conspiracy, they would just have to deal with it when it came. What was the big deal? Look, the black-yellow supreme cloud is here again. They were repelled by us again, here it comes again. He was pushed back again. There were only 20 days left until the day of the world annihilation strategy. The last 20 days. The demonic beast emperor had to return to take charge of the situation and officially open the altar. The Phoenix Emperor also sensed that perhaps, it would happen in the next few days. He, Emperor Rock, Emperor Eagle, and the others were constantly on guard against the various acupoints. The Dog Emperor seemed to grumble a little before he was taken down by the enraged Phoenix Emperor. His cultivation was sealed, and he was taken away by the Dragon Emperor. Emperor Rock and the others could tell at a glance that this was the sacrifice prepared for the world annihilation strategy, the Demon Emperor. However, the Dog Emperor had never been popular, and he was the culprit who had betrayed the cat ancestor back then. Emperor Rock and the others only despised him and did not have any sympathy for him. The other unfortunate emperor that was sacrificed was the Wild Boar Emperor. It was said that this Wild Boar Emperor had never participated in the battle and refused to carry out the orders given to him. Therefore, he was taken down by the Demon Emperor. Of course, the officials also had their own reasons. But no matter what, the 2 demon race emperors that the world annihilation strategy needed had finally been gathered. On this day. On the night when the Dragon Emperor left quietly. The wind and clouds suddenly surged in the sky, and a sudden hurricane started blowing fiercely. The dark clouds that originally covered the sky were blown away in an instant. Yun Yang seemed to have gone mad. He came with the wind, clouds, thunder, and lightning. It was as if he wanted to end it all in one battle, or die trying. The 3 of them were still traveling together, with Yun Yang at the front, Ji Lingxi on the left, and Shengguan Lingxiu on the right. The endless power of wind and thunder that the 3 of them carried covered the entire sky, even replacing the original downpour of clouds. It was as if the sky had collapsed and the sun and moon had lost their light. It looked like this heaven and earth supreme cloud was really going to bring out his trump card this time, defying the laws of nature. Dozens of demon race saints stood up at the same time and flew into the air with a boom. The Phoenix Emperor was the leader of the group of demons. As the Phoenix Emperor approached Yun Yang, he quietly closed his eyes and breathed deeply to regulate his breathing. He was mobilizing the power of his mystical core to ensure that he was at his peak and most complete state, so that he could unleash an instantaneous killing move. It was obvious that Yun Yang had come with a purpose this time. It was probably an extreme move made under desperation. However, his brazen arrival was a rare opportunity for the demon race and the Phoenix Emperor. The Phoenix Emperor was extremely wary of Yun Yang. Even though the demon race's strategy of annihilation was almost successful and victory was within their grasp, Yun Yang's individual ability was too formidable. The Phoenix Emperor had no doubt that the next cultivator in this world to advance to the realm of Starry Sky's end would be Yun Yang. If Yun Yang broke through the shackles of the bound of universe and ascended to the realm of Starry Sky, even if he did not have the ability to turn heaven and earth upside down like the legendary monarch, he would still possess the ability to surpass the cultivators of this world. By then, it did not matter even if the demon race had the upper hand. With the existence of Yun Yang, all the sovereigns and higher-ups of the demon race would forever feel like a fishbone was stuck in their throats, unable to rest in peace. Fortunately, Yun Yang's current ability was still formidable, but he could still be killed. There was still a possibility of annihilating him. Even the two girls who had been by Yun Yang's side all the way were harder to kill than Yun Yang. After all, up until now, other than the Phoenix Emperor's sneak attack and ultimate killing move, he had only managed to severely injure Ji Lingxi and had to endure a considerable counterattack. If it were not for the Phoenix Emperor's extraordinary power of rebirth, the counterattack that day would have been enough to severely injure the Phoenix Emperor as well. Therefore, if it was not necessary, the Phoenix Emperor would not deliberately target the two girls. After all, their cultivation base was far below Yun Yang's anyway. They only had a protective arcane skill that they could not hit, but they would still be trapped by the human wave tactic. Yun Yang, on the other hand, was too difficult to kill. Moreover, he had suddenly appeared out of thin air each time and launched a surprise attack. Even if the Phoenix Emperor had the intention to set up a killing trap, it would be difficult for him to execute it. However, what puzzled the Phoenix Emperor was that Yun Yang had always planned before taking action. Why was he so brazen this time? There must be something fishy about this. Although she knew this, the Phoenix Emperor had informed all the demons present at the first instance. However, he still did not want to give up this chance to get rid of Yun Yang once and for all. After all, their combined combat power far surpassed Yun Yang and the other two. Before absolute power, no matter how ingenious the plan was, it had to be destroyed. Rock, eagle, crane, eagle. The four of you, don't join the battle for now. Just pay attention to any unusual movements. I suspect that Yun Yang's main purpose of coming so forcefully is to restrain us. He has other motives. The Phoenix Emperor's voice was calm. Why don't you all go to the top of the mountain, 1,000 feet above the sky? Each of you guard a mountain and watch out for any changes. I'll deal with Yun Yang. The Rock Emperor and the others nodded and left in a flash. The wind and clouds in the sky surged violently. In the clouds, more and more lightning accumulated. The lightning bolts darted through the clouds. In the end, the entire cloud layer was like a huge ball of lightning. It was as if the apocalyptic lightning tribulation was about to descend. As the Phoenix Emperor thought about it, his expression changed suddenly. He waved his hand. Everyone, retreat quickly. Before his words echoed in the air, he was the first to soar into the sky. Unfortunately, it was still too late. At the same time as the Phoenix Emperor moved, the lightning that had been brewing to its peak came down from the clouds in a frenzy. An area with a radius of 1,000 miles was completely enveloped by the lightning. Each bolt of lightning was as thick as a water tank, its power boundless. It was like an ocean of lightning, engulfing all the demons and sea clans within the area. It was a large-scale, indiscriminate attack of annihilation. Countless experts of the demon and sea clans paled when they saw the menacing aura descending upon them. They were horrified. The power of lightning had always been heaven's punishment. It was a power that cultivators avoided the most. There was no one who did not fear it 30% or 70%. It was a natural fear. The demons were even more enlightened. No wonder Supreme Cloud had come so brazenly this time. It turned out that he had prepared such a trump card. With such a ferocious threat looming over them, it was inevitable that they would suffer heavy losses. Screech. The Phoenix Emperor was decisive. With a long cry, its body unfolded abruptly, turning into a humongous seven-colored phoenix. Its body was engulfed in endless flames that soared into the sky. Its flaming body floated in midair, and with a loud bang, its body rapidly expanded. When it spread its wings, they were 1 to 2,000 miles wide. In that instant, the Phoenix Emperor actually used its body and wings to fight against the lightning that filled the sky. It used its body to block the sea race and Yao race below it, as well as the mountain below it. At that moment, the Phoenix Emperor's actions could be said to be the pillar of heaven and earth, resisting the destructive power. The Phoenix Emperor reverted to its original form and spread its wings, blocking the sun, the sky, the clouds, and even the lightning bolts. Hundreds of millions of lightning bolts struck the Phoenix Emperor with devastating force. It was a sure kill move. However, the Phoenix Emperor remained unmoved. Even though they were enemies, Yun Yang was still impressed by its decisiveness. The Phoenix Emperor was indeed a peerless emperor. It was decisive and without hesitation. If it had hesitated, the lightning bolts that had been brewing for a long time would have been able to severely injure the demons before it. Even if it could not kill them all, it could have created a considerable opportunity for Yun Yang to kill a large number of demon saints. However, under the Phoenix Emperor's swift and decisive reaction, the plan was broken and the Phoenix Emperor died prematurely. The Phoenix Emperor soared into the sky, the endless nirvana flame burning wildly. It was obviously recovering its original state. The lightning bolts were not so easy to withstand. Even with the Phoenix Emperor's ability, it could only try its best to ensure that it would not be damaged. Yun Yang's heart skipped a beat. He activated his water manifestation power, which he had not used for a long time. In an instant, the towering waves on the sea rose in response. With just a slight buildup, the waves were already thousands of feet tall. This sudden change caught everyone off guard, and countless members of the Sea tribe were swept up by the waves. Many of the sages of the Sea clan present immediately revealed an inexplicable look of shock. What kind of water manifestation power was this? How could it be so domineering? It was even more impressive than the Sea clans. Water manipulation art? Who the F***CK was the ruler of the water? In the next moment, the towering waves rose high again, but they did not attack the Sea clans or the demons. Instead, they rose higher and soared into the air, sweeping and piling up somewhere in the sky. The boundless waves accumulated rapidly, forming a massive wave in midair. When they reached the left, their sudden movement was like the waters of the Milky Way, pouring down to the extreme. Their target was the towering fire on the Phoenix Emperor's back. Water countered fire. Yun Yang wanted to use the Tao of 5 elements to extinguish the Phoenix Emperor's nirvana flame by borrowing the force of the waves. If the Phoenix Emperor's nirvana flame was completely extinguished, he would have to withstand the endless lightning bolts alone. Even if he could survive, he would be severely injured. There might even be a chance to eradicate it. Unexpectedly, Ji Lingxi hollered, "Idiot, hide." She pulled Shengguan Lingxiu and crashed into Yun Yang's embrace. "What are you waiting for? Take us in." Although Yun Yang was still a little dazed, he kept the 2 girls away at once and asked, "What is it? What's wrong?" Ji Lingxi said angrily, "You fool, the nirvana flame is an exotic spiritual fire. How can it be extinguished by ordinary water? Using water to extinguish the fire is like pouring oil on the fire. It will only fuel the nirvana flame's power. Running is the right thing to do." Yun Yang was already used to Ji Lingxi's extraordinary knowledge. Without hesitation, he turned and ran. With a wave of his hand, he released Gigi. This fellow was not afraid of the nirvana flame, so it was a good idea to keep it as a line of defense. Everything happened in the blink of an eye. The torrential water had already landed on the nirvana flame. The Phoenix Emperor, who was bearing the heavy pressure, let out a long howl that shook the heavens. Suddenly, it moved and chased after Yun Yang. At that very moment, the Nirvana flame detonated with a boom. The flame soared tens of thousands of feet into the sky, filling the heaven and earth. When the torrential water landed on it, it was exactly as Ji Lingxi had described, pouring oil on the fire. The flames that were originally confined to the Phoenix Emperor instantly turned into a demon that would bring calamity to the world. They burned the entire sky red, and even the clouds were burned to nothingness. As for the lightning, the boundless lightning, it was burned away by the flames. Burning thunder with fire? Yun Yang was dumbfounded. What happened to the mutual restraint of the five elements? It was not even close. This was too much of a dark martial art. As the Nirvana flame erupted unexpectedly, thousands of miles of the sky above their heads turned into a massive black hole. With the appearance of the black hole, the surrounding spiritual qi rushed over like rivers converging into the sea. However, the high temperature was still there, and the black hole seemed to be in a state where it could not accept the replenishment. It kept making crackling sounds. Gigi was dumbfounded by what it saw once it came out. Who am I? Where am I? Why am I in such a large area of Nirvana flame? Gigi was on the verge of tears. Chapter 1479. Gigi was on the verge of tears at this moment. I can devour the flames of Nirvana, my master. But I don't have such a huge appetite. With so much flames of Nirvana, a conservative estimate would be enough to fill me to death 1,000 times, 1,000 times. Gigi let out a shrill cry as it frantically swallowed the flames of Nirvana and fled frantically from the sea of fire. However, the Phoenix Emperor was rushing towards Yun Yang, where Gigi was. Even though Gigi was extremely fast, it could not rush out of the sea of fire in a short amount of time. The few feathers on its body were getting brighter and brighter in the flames of Nirvana. This was not caused by devouring the flames of Nirvana, but by burning. Master, wait for me, I can't hold on any longer. Wait for you? No way. Yun Yang turned backward and fled frantically. He was like a fish that had escaped the net, like a stray dog that had lost its home. All that was left was the thought of running away. This time, it was fortunate that Ji Lingxi's reminder was timely. Yun Yang's speed of escape was fast enough, and the Gigi defense line that he had set up beforehand was effective as well. Otherwise, he would have been badly burned again. What did it mean to set oneself on fire? This time, Yun Yang truly understood the meaning of the words. I'm setting myself on fire because I've added fuel to the fire. I'm King unlucky. The saying, one's own sins can't be spoken of, is it referring to me? On the other side, the Phoenix Emperor was still in hot pursuit. It was rare for Yun Yang to make such a foolish move. How could the Phoenix Emperor, who had gained the upper hand, miss such a great opportunity? He had to exterminate this brat. Truth be told, even the Phoenix Emperor did not know why the massive amount of seawater that was poured on him did not affect his flames of Nirvana at all. Instead, it was like adding fuel to the flames. It was probably because he had never tried it before. The Phoenix Emperor was the ruler of a race after all. Who would have the guts to pour water on the Phoenix Emperor, the divine beast of fire? Today's fortuitous encounter could be considered a pleasant surprise. He did not expect Yun Yang, as an enemy, to be of such great help. It was obvious that even the heavens wanted to fulfill the Phoenix Emperor's wish to pacify the bound of universe. The Phoenix Emperor was overjoyed. Along the way, she ordered the Sea Clan members in front of her to raise waves and greet her. Because of this, the flames really rose higher and higher. The intensity of the fire was unprecedented. Gigi, who had exerted all its strength, had finally escaped the sea of fire and caught up to Yun Yang, charging straight into his embrace like an arrow. He was probably asking for comfort, asking for love, asking for In any case, his scalded heart needed to be properly compensated. Yun Yang, who had Gigi in his embrace, cried out from the scalding heat. He almost pulled Gigi out and flung it away, but it was more important to run for his life now. He could just ignore this little bit of physical pain. The Phoenix Emperor's Nirvana flame had at least tripled in power and was still hot on his tail, pursuing him relentlessly. Below. When Dongfang Haoran and the others who were hiding saw this, they looked at each other in blank dismay. If it wasn't for the fact that this matter was too important and they couldn't act rashly and expose themselves, they would have laughed out loud. This was too amusing. They could not even use voice transmissions. After all, there were too many experts here. The slightest ripple of spiritual energy could be detected with just a glance. In spite of this, the four of them could not help exchanging glances, seeing the almost uncontrollable mirth in each other's eyes. It was not a problem for Yun Yang to use himself as bait to lure the main force of the demon race in pursuit. However, no one, including Yun Yang, would have thought that his plan to lure the tiger away from the mountain to restrain the main force of the demon race would be achieved in such a manner. When the four juggernauts saw Yun Yang run so ungracefully for the first time, sprinting as if he was running for his life, they could not help feeling a subtle emotion. Even if they did not achieve anything this time, just witnessing such an embarrassing scene was enough to make their trip worthwhile. How could there be such a thing? He was helping the enemy to attack himself. Furthermore, this had happened to Lord Supreme Cloud, who had always been known as the Bound of Universes sage, who was unparalleled in his ability to change. It was truly an eye-opener. However, when the four of them thought about it further, they could not help but feel a lingering fear. Like Yun Yang, they did not know that the flames of Nirvana had such characteristics. If the two armies were to fight, the flames of Nirvana would move with the momentum of the water. If the Phoenix Emperor were to set fire to the sea, what kind of disaster would it cause? It was unimaginably terrifying. He watched as the Phoenix Emperor led a large group of demon race sages and sea race sages past him. When he looked back, he could only see the flames on the horizon. Let's begin. Remember, only attack the four mountains by yourself. Don't be greedy. If we succeed, retreat immediately. We're in the demon race's territory now. Any mishap and we'll perish here. The human race still needs us. While the Phoenix Emperor was far away and Emperor Rock and the others were observing from afar on the mountain peak, it was the best time to act. Dongfang Haoran transmitted his voice hurriedly. The other three nodded lightly. Amidst the surging waves, the four sovereigns floated out like smoke. They quickly dove in and headed for their target. Emperor Rock and the others were also amazed by the scene that Yun Yang had created. They also felt a sense of schadenfreude. Yun Yang, this bastard, actually has this day. Great, great. He deserves it. I hope the Phoenix Emperor burns him to death with a fire to prevent any future troubles. The four sovereigns could not help but gather together. How could they not be happy to witness such an amusing event with their own eyes? It would be a waste if they did not find someone to share it with. Do you think the Phoenix Emperor can catch Yun Yang this time? Emperor Rock smiled. Yun Yang is too good at escaping. He saw the opportunity early this time, so the chances of completely killing him aren't very high. However, if I'm not wrong, this Heaven's Supreme Cloud will be heavily injured this time. I think so too. Yun Yang's speed is too fast. Even the Phoenix Emperor, who has always been known for his speed, doesn't have any advantage in front of him. But this time, this Heaven's Supreme Cloud will definitely leave an indelible laughingstock in the history of the Bound of Universes war. Ha ha ha. I'm dying of laughter. I've shot myself in the foot. Eagle Emperor's beak stretched out as he laughed. The other sovereigns were also smiling. They were in such a good mood. However, at this moment, something happened to ruin their good mood. Boom! 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 There was a loud bang first, followed by 4 to 5 consecutive loud bangs, one after another. The four sovereigns' expressions changed drastically. Turning their heads to look, they saw a large amount of turbulent seawater gushing out from dozens of miles behind them. The few mountains that should have stood tall and blocked the flow of the water were long gone. It was obvious that they had been destroyed. Further away, there were still several faint shadows that were destroying the mountains in a frenzy. The rumbling sounds were incessant, stirring one's heart and soul. In the blink of an eye, another 7 or 8 mountain peaks had crumbled. From the flickering figures, the sovereigns could clearly sense a familiar energy fluctuation. It was the aura of their mortal enemies in the bound of universe. Bastard! Emperor Rock roared angrily and took the lead to flip into the sky. Without hesitation, he revealed his true form. With a flap of his wings, he tore through space and rushed over. The other sovereigns did not dare to delay and rushed over. However, many things could be done in this gap. In the blink of an eye, another 10 mountains collapsed. The seawater that was originally fixed within the range of the established waterway was gushing out of the newly opened flood channel that was no less than 2,000 miles long. Just by looking at it, the newly opened channel was almost as boundless as the sea. In just a moment, an immeasurable amount of seawater surged out from the gap. Emperor Rock and the other demons were dumbfounded. The current destruction was the most severe since the world annihilation stratagem began. Furthermore, it had happened right under their noses and under their watch. Especially the mountains that were supposed to be guarded by the Eagle Emperor and the Crane Emperor, but now they were gone. The four sovereigns instantly went crazy. Goodbye, goodbye. I'm really tired today, really tired. Dongfang Haoran laughed loudly. Old friends of the demon race, there's no need to be so polite. There's no need to send me off. Ha 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 ha. As they laughed, the four sovereigns unleashed their maximum speed and tore through space. In a flash, they were thousands of kilometers away. Emperor Rock roared with extreme grief and indignation. Dongfang Haoran, you cowardly rat. Stay and fight me. I don't dare. Ha ha ha, I admit that I don't dare. Emperor Rock, worry about your own mountains. Remember not to tire yourself too much when moving the mountains. It's not worth it if you tire yourself out. As the saying goes, where there's life, there's hope. If there's life, there's hope. Dongfang Haoran's laughter came from afar, but he had already disappeared. Emperor Rock knew that he couldn't catch up. He was so angry that his face turned red and he almost spat out a mouthful of blood. Emperor Crane and the others wanted to chase after Dongfang Haoran and the others. They wanted to fight with their lives on the line. They couldn't take it anymore. But looking at the surging seawater and the fact that even the experts of the sea race couldn't stop it, the emperors felt a wave of helplessness. They urgently needed to make up for it. Make up for it. His grandpa. What the hell was this? A large number of seafolk corpses gradually appeared on the surface of the sea. There were too many of them to count, and they were all washed away by the flood. This was clearly the result of the four sovereigns attacking the bottom of the sea with all their strength. Just this attack alone had killed hundreds of millions of sea tribe members of different levels. At this time, the bottom of the sea was also in a tsunami. What are you all still standing around for? The Falcon Emperor roared with all his might, move the mountain. Fuck. The remaining less than 30 saints of the Demon Clan and Sea Clan were speechless. They looked at each other and were speechless. Move the mountains? That's easy for you to say. Where were the mountains now? It should be said, where were the nearby mountains? The mountains that were relatively close had been emptied long ago. Now, not to mention the mountains that were far away, there were definitely no more mountains within 3 to 5,000 li. If you want to fill the gaps, you can only travel a long distance to move them. It's very easy for us to go there. We only need to move them in a flash, but how is it just a flash and a move to move the mountains back? Why don't you, as a sovereign, try it yourself? Quickly! Are all of you stupid? The 4 sovereigns roared crazily. All the powerful sages present rushed out one by one in a daze. They all felt the powerlessness in their hearts, the helplessness, the grievance. It was simply. These sages were the cream of the crop in their respective races. After all, they had reached the highest level of cultivation in this world. But now, they were reduced to manual labor. They were all cursing in their hearts, but they had no choice but to do the work. Because of this mentality, the speed at which they moved the mountains became even slower. Halfway through the journey, he actually felt that he had lost all his strength. What was the use of moving them here? If the other side attacked again, wouldn't they still have to move the mountains again? This time, they had to move 5,000 li away. What about the next time, 10,000 li or even further? I'm a tyrant in my own world. Why is it that I can't be of any use in the war here? I'm reduced to manual labor, and the most bitter of all, moving mountains. The Sea Clan's higher-ups appeared from the sea. Under the Ocean King's orders, they used all their power to make the seawater flow back. But Dongfang Haoran and the others had clearly anticipated this. Before they left, the 4 peak saints worked together to make a move at the bottom of the sea. The aftermath of that move was still far from disappearing. It affected the sea thousands of li away, forming a large-scale tsunami. No matter how hard the Sea Clan's experts tried, they could only reduce the speed at which the seawater flowed out. On the other side, the tsunami had already formed a huge wave that was thousands of zhang high. It was coming back majestically. Even the Ocean Emperor could only sigh helplessly in the face of such a natural force that had already taken shape. Hurry up and summon the clouds and rain, select 1,000,000 Sea Clan members and go to the other side. Use your power to bring back the seawater that has flowed out. Collect as much as you can. A huge old turtle with a shell as big as a mountain range appeared. It was the Turtle Prime Minister of the Sea Clan. At this moment, the Turtle Prime Minister's face was pale. The amount of water that had flowed out was huge. Even if 1,000,000 monster race members worked together to collect it, how much could they collect? Not to mention that the other side was the life-forbidden zone. That inexplicable power could erode the vitality of living beings at any time. Once 1,000,000 monster race members went over, not many would be able to return. Hurry up and melt the snow mountain. Summon the clouds and rain. The Turtle Prime Minister said bleakly, "Your Majesty, there is no other way. This time, let the royal family personally come forward." The Ocean King's mouth twitched. He said unwillingly, "All right." Chapter 1480. On the other side, the Phoenix Emperor continued to chase after Yunyang, chasing him until there was no way out. In the end, for some unknown reason, a certain someone actually plunged headfirst into the sea. The Phoenix Emperor did not hesitate, evaporating the sea where Yunyang had plunged into with the fire of nirvana. However, he did not find anything specific, so he could only return unwillingly. However, when he returned, he saw the huge gap that had not been repaired at all. He felt like his head was about to explode. What's going on? The Phoenix Emperor's roar resounded through the sky. Even the demon race's sovereigns, who had lived together for tens of thousands of years, had never seen the Phoenix Emperor lose his composure and lose his temper. He glared and almost strangled the Eagle Emperor to death. What's going on? The Eagle Emperor was so stifled that he danced. It's Dongfang Haoran and the others, then why aren't you moving the mountain? The Phoenix Emperor's roar shook the world. Are the four of you just standing here as supervisors? The Rock Emperor and the others could only work obediently in front of the enraged Phoenix Emperor. It was best to avoid conflict for the time being. How many days do you need to repair it? At least 3 days. Bullsh *t. The Phoenix Emperor was furious. 2 days at most. If it can't be repaired, everyone can die. At this moment, the Phoenix Emperor's rage was about to burn the entire world. He wanted nothing more than to burn everything to the ground. It was not that he was not well-mannered, but the choice at this juncture in time was too *king impulsive. The ambush by the human race's top combat power was too *king incisive. The damage caused was simply subversive, enough to affect the entire situation. Strictly speaking, the gaps formed by the four rulers were located at critical points and were not easy to repair. However, with the demon race's demonic power, it was not a big problem. At most, it would take 2 to 3 days to repair. However, the crux of the problem was obviously not this. Even if the top of the demon race spared no effort to repair this gap in 2 days, what about the seawater that had flowed through the gap? It was definitely not something that could be gathered back in just 2 days. Although the sea was said to be endless, it was not easy to divert the water here. No matter how hard the experts of the sea race tried to divert the seawater back, without around 20 days, it would be difficult to make up for the lost seawater. The time for the strategy of exterminating the world was set to be 20 days later. This time was fixed and could not be changed. The Demon Emperor had personally made a sacrifice to the demon ancestor, and his name was heard from above the 9 heavens. If he couldn't fulfill his promise, who would bear the wrath of the demon ancestor? All members of the sea race, all members of the dragon race, all members of the sea race and the demon race. The Phoenix Emperor was enraged. Everyone, perform your duties and do your best to repair the flaws. Those who transport water, those who create clouds and rain, and those who melt the volcano, time is of the essence, Meng Hao said. We can't afford to lose even a single moment of time. Starting today, the demon soul sacrificial rite will trigger the volcano to erupt. Sea folk, move all the targeted underwater volcanoes here. Stuff them into the waterway gap as fast as possible. If there are any leftovers, send them to the Blood Soul stronghold. Starting today, the prelude to the strategy of exterminating the world will be activated. The Phoenix Emperor's extreme rage exploded from the bottom of his heart, causing him to act almost crazily. This was because he clearly recognized the reality. The situation had changed drastically. If he did not adapt to the situation, the strategy of exterminating the world that the demon race and sea race had painstakingly prepared might really come to a premature end. This outcome was obviously a heavy responsibility that even the Phoenix Emperor could not bear. On the other side, in the Fox Emperor city. What should we do next? Dongfang Haoran looked at Yun Yang. The four rulers still had unconcealable smiles on their faces. For the sake of safety, the Bound of Universe humans had only sent 4 rulers to participate in this operation. The other 6 saint-level experts did not make a move and only stayed behind to provide support to ensure their safety. Reality proved that the support was indeed useless. In terms of the outcome of this battle, there were only 3 words: exhilarating. Not only had they managed to stop the world annihilation stratagem, but they had also personally witnessed the mysterious yellow supreme cloud, whose might had shaken the world, flee in a sorry state with his tail between his legs. Furthermore, it had been caused by him. The 4 rulers felt a great sense of accomplishment, and they felt extremely carefree. Brother Yun. Shiman Fanfu looked serious. The next time you do something so dangerous, don't bring sister-in-law along. It's too dangerous. As a senior and someone who's experienced it, I have to say something about you. Look at what you've done. Yun Yang looked frantic and depressed. Was this something I did? Do you think I wanted to? You're too young and inconsiderate. Dongfang Haoren looked displeased. Tell me, what do you think you're doing? If sister-in-law's pretty face is. Tell me, it'll be a lifelong regret. He looked exasperated at Yun Yang. The corners of Yun Yang's lips twitched. These old things, not only are they making fun of me, they're also trying to sow discord between us as husband and wife. I don't believe that you wouldn't have used the fire of nirvana if you knew how domineering it is. Don't fall for it, both of you. These people aren't good people. Yun Yang told the two girls. However, the two girls glared at him in unison. Obviously, Dongfang Haoren's voice was filled with concern, allowing his provocation to be effective. Humph. You just don't care about us. Humph. Maybe you're thinking that it'll be easier for you to find another one after we're disfigured. What a wild ambition. You're insane. You must have a lover already. You must have someone outside. Men are all big pig trotters. Do you think we don't know you're a playboy? Full of flirting thoughts. You've gone too far. You're openly harming people. Yun Yang looked aggrieved. He had no idea where the two girls were coming from. That man, Dongfang Haoren, and the rest were delighted to see that their provocation was successful, but they continued to fan the flames. Cough. Sister-in-law, calm down. Actually, it's not a big deal. It's not that bad. That's right, it's just a small matter. I already knew that Brother Yun isn't that kind of person when I went to drink with the courtesans the last time. Sister-in-law, please calm down. I can guarantee that nothing happened between Yun Yang and the girl from the brothel called Little Lotus. There's nothing between them. Yun Yang's nose was almost crooked from his anger. Is this how you mediate a fight? I just want to ask, is this how you mediate a fight? Are you trying to kill me by harming people so openly? Seeing how the four of you are so leisurely and carefree, it seems like you have the pearl of wisdom in your hands and everything is under your control. I, Yun, am just a small character with a small nose and small eyes. I am young and inexperienced, so it is difficult for me to ascend to such a grand hall. How can I be brothers with the four of you? Yun Yang's expression was cold as he said faintly, the bound of universe's plan to deal with the demon race's apocalypse shall be handed over to the four of you. The four of you are experienced and far-sighted. You must have a plan in mind, so I won't embarrass myself in front of you. He was clearly saying that he was unhappy and that he was going to quit. The four rulers were dumbfounded. After a while, Dongfang Haoren said, "What are you doing?" Yun Yang knows that he's young and inexperienced. He has the heart but not the strength. That's all. Then how do we continue? I'll have to ask you. My only suggestion is that we can consider fighting with our mouths. Your mouths are very sharp and rare in this world. It'll be a waste if we don't use them. Isn't it just a joke? You can't even take a joke at such a young age. Beigong Liuli pouted. Yun Yang rolled his eyes. What do you know? Ji Lingxi is already looking for trouble with me. Your joke is equivalent to sending a knife into her hands. Even if she knew that it was nonsense, it would never stop her from using this as a pretext to annoy him again and again. You're all men with wives. Why are you still doing this? Don't you feel guilty? Is this all you've accumulated after tens of thousands of years? Humph. Yun Yang was infuriated. After the ruckus, Yun Yang sat down in a sullen manner. How could he not do anything if he said he would? He continued with the discussion. He finally understood that these old fellows were all cowards who bullied the weak and feared the strong. He could not be nice to them. Once he gave them a little, they would take advantage of him. Should we continue to wreak havoc? Dongfang Haoren suggested. The previous operation had been successful. The 4 men led by him had made a joke out of Yun Yang because they were in a good mood. The consequences were severe and Dongfang Haoren was filled with regret. However, the root of this was not his fault. It was Shimen Fengfu's bad taste that had flared up. It was more important to get down to business, wreak havoc. It's already very lucky to have succeeded this time. There's no chance of success again. Yun Yang sighed. After this incident, the Phoenix Emperor will definitely increase his guard against the waterway in his fury. If we go there without knowing how to lose, with our current combined abilities, we'll be asking for trouble. We'll just be digging our own graves and digging our own graves. Then what should we do? Is there nothing else to do? Although the apocalypse strategy's progress has been greatly delayed, it's far from being safe. There must be something else, but the only thing we can do now is to wait for a chance and give up on destroying the water surface. Yun Yang's eyes were tinged with a smirk. See if there's any chance to strike at the bottom of the sea. Dongfang Haoren was hesitant. It's easy to fight on land. Although we're in the demon race's territory, we can still unleash our full strength. If we go underwater, especially in the deeper parts of the sea, it'll be difficult for us to use less than 10% of our abilities. If we really start fighting, we'll fall into a terrible state of insufficient spiritual qi. By then, it'll be difficult to even maintain internal breathing. We'll need to catch our breaths. How can we achieve anything then? Leave everything related to the underwater to me. Even Lingxi and Lingxiu don't have to go. Yun Yang said, all of you will stay hidden above the water surface. If you notice an underwater volcano moving towards the shore, don't act hastily. Just keep an eye on it quietly. Find a chance to pour the seawater into the volcano's mouth. Brilliant. The group clapped and cheered. Indeed, the mountains and peaks near the shore were mostly destroyed. Considering the time limit of the apocalyptic strategy, there was a great chance that the sea race would move the underwater volcanoes to the surface. Not only would they be able to seal the gap, but they would also further advance the strategic plan. Yun Yang's plan was to pour seawater into the volcanoes and perhaps destroy them directly. If it was successful, not only would it create a new gap, it could also reduce the number of volcanoes. I've been destroying the mountains by the shore without a care for the cost during this period of time. My deeper plan has been waiting for this moment. Yun Yang pondered and said, if it's successful, it still won't be able to stop the apocalyptic strategy completely, but the support of this tsunami is destined to be smaller than the demon race's planned scale. Dongfang Haoren and the others nodded silently. Yes, and indeed. Even if the apocalyptic strategy caused the world to collapse, even if the mountain of blood soul collapsed, everyone would still have to fight. On the other side, there were already countless experts of the human race waiting solemnly, not hesitating to fight. With the unity of the human experts, the demon race might not necessarily win if they fought with all their might. However, if the torrential seawater entered the bound of heaven and earth on a large scale, then the advantages and disadvantages of both sides would not be the same. When the turbid waves reached the sky, the Sea Clan would hide in the waves and assist the Demon Clan. Wherever it flowed, it would settle down. It was impossible to guard against it, and it was extremely difficult to be discovered. That would be a catastrophe for the human race of the Bound of Yellow. The Blood Soul Mountain can collapse. You must not enter the sea. Yun Yang uttered each word clearly. Therefore, we must treat the sea race seriously. All right. Understood. Following that, Dongfang Haoren and the others witnessed the full strength of the mysterious yellow cloud. First, he summoned the wind and clouds, dispersing all the clouds in the sky. No matter what the Sea Monarch clan and the Dragon clan did, they could not stop him. As far as the eye could see, there were no clouds in the clear blue sky. As the saying goes, the clouds and the rain are all just a painting. Faced with this situation, the Phoenix Emperor was angered to the point of wanting to vomit blood. Then, huge waves surged on the surface of the sea. It was the combination of the wind and water elemental powers, causing huge waves to surge on the surface of the sea. Supreme Cloud is in the sea. Search. Countless experts of the Sea clan began to get busy. After Yunyang stirred up the waves on the sea, he saw that the waves had already formed a considerable scale and would not disappear in a short period of time. He immediately dove into the bottom of the sea and brewed a new wave. Chapter 1481. Untitled chapter of I Am the Supreme Being. Please wait for a moment. After the content has been updated, please refresh the page to receive the latest update. You're tuning into the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.